Chapter 524. Today's breakout. The second update has arrived. He arrived at the warehouse. This was a huge warehouse meticulously built by the money addict, Fatty Tang. It was located 3 meters below the aristocratic hall, and didn't have a specific measurement of its area. In any case, it looked like a large black field. Tang Yuan's lifelong dream was to fill this place with silver. He had once said, "If one day I fill this place with silver, then I, Tang Yuan, will really be able to go to the underworld with a smile." Fatty Tang hadn't expected that his dream of going to the underworld with a smile would come true so quickly. Moreover, it wasn't filled with silver, but with gold. Fatty was going crazy. Jun Moxie didn't see the black field when he arrived. Instead, he saw a dazzling sight of gold and jade. There weren't many lights, but this place had turned into a world of gold. Or perhaps it was a towering golden mountain. It was too dazzling. This spectacular scene made Jun Moxie's eyes glitter with a golden light. It was as if he had cultivated his Xian Qi to the gold Xian level. A strange sound that sounded like crying and laughing came from afar. Then, a tall and sturdy figure dashed out from the depths of the treasury. He roared as he flitted past Jun Moxie's eyes, as if he hadn't seen him at all. Then, he dashed around the golden mountain, and then another. It was hard for him to run so fast with his thick legs. The one running was the money addict, Tang Yuan. Fatty Tang waved his hands in a frenzy. Spittle splashed from the corner of his mouth in all directions. He was sweating profusely. His eyes were opened wide in terror as he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Jin Zi! So much gold! Motherfucker, I'm the one who earned it. It's all mine. Gold! Damn it! I'm rich. I'm really rich." In such a short span of a day, the incomparably huge Fatty Tang had unexpectedly lost weight. It was very obvious. He had actually lost weight several times in a short period of time. The weight loss effect could be said to be exceptionally remarkable, but his mental state seemed to be somewhat abnormal. Throughout the day and night, Fatty was in a highly concentrated state. At first, he still remembered to take a few bites of pig trotters to replenish his nutrition, but later on, he did not even have time to drink water. Even when someone reminded him to drink water, he was impatiently scolded by him. It was a waste of money. His eyes were filled with gold, his hands were filled with gold, and his body was filled with gold. This could not be filled, not because there was not enough gold, but because there was too much gold. Even if there were dozens of Fatty, he could still bury them all. It was said that counting money would cause one's hands to cramp up, but Fatty Tang's whole body was spasming from counting money. His entire body was drenched in sweat. According to eyewitnesses, young Master Tang's robes were completely covered in salt and alkali rings. All in all, Tang Yuan couldn't help but fall into Jun Dashao's trap. On this day, he willingly overdrew himself n times. According to incomplete statistics, Tang Yuan's weight loss today was at least 25 kilograms. What a frightening number it was. Finally, as Tang Yuan sang and danced past Jun Moxie again, but he still ignored him. Finally, Jun Moxie shouted, "Tang Yuan!" Fatty Tang turned a deaf ear to Fatty Tang's words, and continued to walk around his golden mountain. Jun Moxie was quick to react. He grabbed a big piece of fat from the back of Tang Yuan's head and dragged it to his side, as if he was carrying a huge sack. Then, he threw it on the ground. His hands were full. This time, it was not the feeling of fat, but sweat. A lot of sweat. Tang Yuan's eyes were blurred and fanatical. He panted for a long time. As he stopped exercising, sweat poured out from his head and body like melting snow. Looking at the amount of sweat, Jun Moxie was shocked. If he sweated like this, he would probably be dehydrated or even die. But this guy, Tang Yuan, had been sweating like this for almost an entire day, and he could still practice a 100-meter sprint here. He really had to admire this guy's fat. It was really thick. Sweat poured out, and Tang Yuan's consciousness gradually returned. Finally, his eyes regained focus. Shaking his head, he asked in confusion, "Third young master, why do you have 3 heads? What kind of kung fu is this? It's amazing." His voice was so hoarse that it couldn't be heard. Jun Moxie was speechless. This guy was sweating so much that he felt a little dizzy. It seemed that he had to help him replenish some water. Losing weight was a good thing, but if he wanted to lose a lot of weight, then, unexpectedly, Tang Yuan suddenly jumped up and grabbed Jun Moxie's shoulder. With unknown strength, he lifted Jun Dashao up and shook him back and forth in the air like a scarecrow. He yelled crazily, "Waha! Waha, third young master, I love you. I love you more than anyone else in the world. I love you so much. We're rich this time, la 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 la. Damn it, Tang Yuan, have such a day." Jun Mo Xia was fluttering in the air like a piece of paper. He felt dizzy as he listened to Fatty's declaration of love. He felt like he was being showered with spittle. He was battered and exhausted, and finally couldn't bear the burden. He flew into a rage and roared, "Fatty! You damned fat rabbit, put me down right now." Jun Mo Xia didn't dare to forcibly struggle out of Tang Yuan's grasp. After all, Tang Yuan's body had clearly been overdrawn to a dangerous state. Moreover, this guy's mind was still in a state of extreme excitement. In fact, Jun Mo Xia didn't doubt that Tang Yuan's arms would have been torn off if he were to fall to the ground. Bang! Jun Moxie fell to the ground, but Fatty Tang had no choice but to stop his madness. He was completely exhausted and fell on his butt. Then, he completely lost consciousness. What happened? What happened? What happened? Sun Xiaomei rushed in a panic. What happened? He's exhausted and fainted. This money addict. Jun Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did he lose so much weight all of a sudden? Sun Xiaomei cried out in pain. Isn't this too fast? Can his body take it? Jun Moxie looked and saw Tang Yuan lying on the ground. His face was almost visible. He couldn't help but be shocked. The effect was simply too obvious. "Miss Sun, you should send Fatty back first. I'm afraid he still won't feel like eating for the next few days." "Don't worry, it's because he's too tired and hungry today. He probably won't have any appetite for 5 to 6 days. And this period of time is when he really loses weight. If he's thirsty, drink some water. If he's hungry, eat some vegetarian food. Don't let him eat meat. He can't touch any of it. He can't stand greasy food now. Before he returns to normal, I'll give him an unforgettable slimming treatment." Jun Moxie laughed weirdly. How about not losing weight for now? Who can bear losing so much weight in one day? Actually, Yuan looks better with a chubby face. Sun Xiaomei said hesitantly. Tang Yuan's weight loss today was too much. Sun Xiaomei was a little scared. A fat husband was better than a dead husband. Idiot. If you're so indecisive and let him get fat, he'll die. Being too fat is also a serious illness. Jun Moxie was furious. He shouted, "If you can't bear it, I'll be the bad guy. Come, help carry Fatty away. No one is allowed to visit him without my order. Even if it was his father, mother, or wife, he wouldn't be able to do it. Song Shang, you'll be in charge of him. If he eats even a little bit of oil these days, I'll skin you alive." He stormed out the door in a huff. Sun Xiaomei looked sadly at Jun Moxie's back as he left. She whispered, "Why is this person so heartless? He just lit a fire." She squatted down and caressed Tang Yuan's face. She said softly with a heartache, "Fatty, you must hold on. You should be fine if you don't eat meat for a few days." The fat man who was in a coma suddenly laughed foolishly. His hands were raised up high unconsciously. Saliva dripped down from the corner of his mouth. He suddenly roared, "Gold! so much gold. So many wives, concubines. Wahahaha, Sun Xiaomei stared blankly. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. Then, she stood up, and ferociously kicked Fatty's buttocks. She then walked out with an ashen face, and shouted, "Come. Watch him closely. Song Shang, I won't need the third young Master Jun's help if you give him too much oil. I'll skin you alive." Then, she walked out in a rage. Song Shang chuckled as he walked in. He stroked his chin proudly. "Fatty, you've finally fallen into Uncle Song's hands. See how I'll deal with you. If I let you shit on my neck again, I'll serve you lavish food every day for the next few days. I won't let you touch it." As expected, Tang Yuan slept for 2 days. When he woke up, the first thing he did was to anxiously look for the latrine. After all, he had been holding back his food for 3 days. With Fatty's frightening appetite, who knew how much food he had stored up? When he returned, he fell on his bed. He was dizzy and had no appetite. He felt nauseous. On the first day, he only ate 2 small bowls of millet porridge. This greatly surprised Sun Xiaomei, who was secretly observing him. So what Jun Moxie said was actually true. Although Miss Sun was angry, she was still worried. So, she hid in the dark and kept investigating. If Tang Yuan apologized to her, she would help him steal some food no matter what. However, Sun Xiaomei's intentions were destined to be in vain. Fatty Tang had offended her twice. But, both times, he was in a daze. He didn't even know what he had said. How could he apologize to her? The next day, Tang Yuan was still dispirited. He ate some appetizers, drank some millet porridge, and frowned at the sight of steamed buns. On the third day, Tang Yuan regained some of his energy. He wanted to eat. So, Song Shang carefully cooked a feast. Then, he and Hai Chen Feng gorged themselves in front of Tang Yuan. Fatty was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks, jumping up and down. But, how could the 2 Tian Xian experts let go of the opportunity to punish him so easily? With them guarding him, Fatty Tang jumped for a long time. But, he couldn't even get a bone out of him. In a fit of anger, he went on a hunger strike for another day. Chapter 525. The 4th day was incredible. Tang Yuan looked at the doorpost and wanted to bite it. He had eaten 3 steamed buns in the blink of an eye. But, there was no more. There were a lot of vegetarian dishes. He could eat as much as he wanted. But, this thing couldn't resist hunger. On the 5th day, Fatty inadvertently discovered that his big belly had shrunk a lot. He could even see the tips of his feet. He could even see the shape of his eyes on his face. They had been squeezed by his fat to the point where only a slit could be seen. But, they were now visible. Tang Yuan was very excited. He immediately brought a large scale that was used to weigh pork. He stood on it, and 2 burly men lifted it up. And, they were pleasantly surprised to find that his weight had gone down. He had reached a terrifying 530 kilograms 5 days ago. But, he was only 370 kilograms now. It had only been 5 days, and it had actually dropped by 160 in one go. Tang Yuan was pleasantly surprised. This is too scary. Am I dreaming? I wouldn't even dare to dream of such a good thing. But, an unexpected situation occurred while he was pleasantly surprised. 2 burly men suddenly appeared at the entrance of the aristocratic hall. They held long sabers in their hands. One of them pointed at Tang Yuan and shouted, "It's Fatty. Kill him." Tang Yuan was shocked. He didn't know what was going on. Could it be that the Huang family has hired assassins? So, he turned around and ran. The 2 burly men were hot on his heels. Tang Yuan shouted for help as he ran. But, the normally heavily guarded aristocratic hall was like an empty city at this time. Tang Yuan had no choice but to run around the courtyard of the aristocratic hall. The two burly men were also hot-headed. They were shouting and yelling at the top of their lungs. But they didn't know how to attack from two sides. They only knew how to chase after Fatty's butt. Their martial arts were probably very sloppy. So, they couldn't catch up to him. Fatty's running speed wasn't very fast. But the two men behind him weren't very good either. They kept shouting and killing at a distance of 4 or 5 feet from him. One of the men chased a little closer and slashed down with his saber. The clothes on the back of the fatty were cut open, and even the fat on his back was cut open by the tip of the saber. Blood instantly flowed out, and it was a painful experience. Fatty screamed in pain. He ran even faster under the influence of the pain. His face was full of fear. Damn it, it turns out that it's really deadly. Oh my God. Under the fear of death, Tang Yuan ran even more desperately, and his speed became even faster. The two men behind him kept shouting and cursing. They wanted to extract the fat from Fatty's body and use it to light the sky lantern. From their cursing, Fatty found out that these two men were assassins hired by the Huang family to take revenge on him. This time, Fatty was so scared that 2 out of 3 souls escaped, and 5 out of 7 spirits escaped. Damn it, how good would it be if he wanted to settle accounts? I have plenty of gold. But this is for revenge. Ah, he wants my life. In his panic, Fatty began to run even more desperately. He knew his own situation, and Fatty was also aware of his own speed. He was afraid that if he stopped for even a moment, the two assassins would catch up to him. He didn't even dare to turn his head. He was panting and sweating profusely. His legs felt like lead, and his throat was like a bellows. But the two soul chaser envoys didn't stop. So, how could Fatty stop and wait to be slaughtered? So, he mustered his remaining courage and continued to run. Suddenly, he felt his whole body relax. His legs had inexplicably gained new strength. Tang Yuan was overjoyed. He continued to run with all his might. Jun Moxie, Hai Chen Feng, and Song Shang were squatting on the roof. The 3 of them were eating melon seeds with a smile on their faces. They weren't anxious at all. Suddenly, Jun Moxie said in astonishment, "How did Fatty suddenly break through his limit? This is too incredible." Hai Chen Feng and Song Shang were stunned. They didn't know what he was talking about. As Tang Yuan madly ran, he could only scream in panic and shout for help. However, no one came to help him. Therefore, he ran for his life again and again. He felt that his legs had run out of strength after running for a while. Then, he suddenly felt that he could run again. Then, he suddenly felt that he had run out of strength again. Then, he could run again. This cycle repeated itself 7 or 8 times. Finally, there was a limit to one's strength. Fatty's energy was exhausted, and he fell to the ground. His limbs twitched for a while, and he almost vomited blood. He said in despair, "Do whatever you want, I admit defeat. Give me a quick death." After saying that, he directly fainted. The 2 men who had been chasing him threw their knives on the ground. Then, they put their hands on their knees. Their tongues were hanging out as they gasped for air. They were gasping for air. "Young master, you've killed us. Who would have thought that this fat fatty could run so fast?" But, he didn't stop for an entire morning. My God. Looking at the road, he was drenched in sweat. Jun Moxie snapped his fingers in satisfaction. He came in front of Fatty and carefully looked at him. Then, he said with a smile, "It's done. He has returned to the state he was in 5 days ago. Do as I said. Continue to forbid him from eating meat. If he really can't do it, he can eat some Shaoyang pills. But, remember, he can only eat 1 pill a day. Also, he can't eat more than 3 steamed buns in 1 meal. That's all." Tang Yuan slowly woke up. He was already on the bed. Beside him, Song Shang had a worried expression on his face. When he saw Tang Yuan wake up, he hastily said, "What happened?" "I only went out for a short while." "How did such a big thing happen?" "Fortunately, I arrived in time. Otherwise, young Master Tang would have become a ghost under a knife. All the bodyguards died today. If anything happens to young Master Tang, all of you will be buried with him." Tang Yuan rejoiced. He weakly thanked Song Shang and drank a bowl of millet porridge. Then, he continued to sleep. And so, another 5 days passed. On the 10th day, Fatty finally felt a lot better. He remembered that he hadn't seen Sun Xiaomei for a long time. When he asked, he found out that she had returned home. So, he went to the Sun residence to visit her. Who knew that when he arrived at the entrance of the Sun residence, he would run into a young man with oily hair and a powdered face. It turned out that he was a rival in love. It was said that he was also pursuing Sun Xiaomei. It must be said that after Sun Xiaomei's figure and appearance were cured, she could be said to be both talented and good-looking. She had many suitors. Even if they didn't line up from the South City to the North City, it was almost the same. When this powdered youth heard that this fatty in front of him was Tang Yuan, he immediately became furious. He ordered his subordinates to kill him. When the bodyguards that Tang Yuan brought along saw that the situation was not good, they scattered and ran for their lives. Only Tang Dashao was left to face the knife and sword alone. Tang Yuan was completely dumbfounded. "Damn it, why is it not over yet? There are people waiting to kill me everywhere. I can't help it. I have to run." So, Fatty turned around and ran for his life at full speed like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. That young master did not let it go. He brazenly chased after Tang Yuan, Tang Dashao, on the streets of the capital. His knife and sword were shining brightly, and his murderous aura was soaring. Speaking of which, it was strange that there was no intervention from the soldiers. There were no heroes who came to defend the injustice. As for those acquaintances of Fatty Tang, not a single one of them could be seen. Moreover, every family had closed their doors. Tang Yuan could only run along the street to another street, but it was still the same. At the end of the day, Tang Yuan had almost run through the entire street of Tianxiang City. Finally, he could not take it anymore. He collapsed on the ground, unable to get up. This time, he was in a better condition. He did not faint. At this critical moment, a righteous voice shouted, "Who dares to hurt young Master Tang? Men, come and kill him." This heavenly voice belonged to Hai Chen Feng. His savior had finally arrived. He was finally out of danger. Tang Yuan was so grateful that he almost shed tears. He is such a good man. How could I have been blinded by greed and used a chicken feather as an arrow to torment him? Then, he heard a blood-curdling scream from behind him. The sound of swords and knives falling to the ground could be heard. Then, he heard someone say, "This is a tough nut to crack. Everyone, run." Then, they disappeared without a trace. Hai Chen Feng carried Tang Yuan on his back. He did not feel that Fatty was heavy anymore. Poor Tang Dashao was obviously on the verge of collapse after being dragged and frightened again. After returning, he was served with clear soup and millet porridge as usual. Tang Yuan wanted to cry but had no tears. His eyes had turned green. In his own words, this young master's intestines are thin from hunger. "Can't you give me something delicious?" Another 5 days passed. Tang Yuan was weighed again. This time, he was scared out of his wits. Damn it! 130 kilograms. From 530 kilograms to 230 kilograms. He had lost 150 kilograms in only 20 days. Fatty still looked somewhat bloated. But compared to before, he could be said to be like a jade tree in the wind. Under Jun Moxie's demonic torture, Tang Yuan had finally succeeded in losing weight. Moreover, it was a great success. No matter which world he went to, this kind of weight loss speed was unprecedented. It was definitely at the peak of perfection, a typical legend. If this happened on Earth, young Master Tang's name would definitely be recorded in the Guinness World Records. In the words of one of his brothers, even if he had cancer, he wouldn't have lost so much weight, an average person would not have been able to bear it. But Tang Yuan's body had been strengthened by eating delicacies since childhood. His body was rich in gold. Moreover, every night when Jun Moxie saw that Tang Dashao could not bear it, he would secretly use his spiritual energy to unblock his meridians and nourish his body. Therefore, Tang Dashao would definitely be full of energy the next day. But this guy was kept in the dark. He could only lament his bad luck these few days. But now that he had lost weight, Fatty's appetite had also disappeared. After 20 days, he had gotten used to eating vegetables and tofu. He could not tolerate greasy food anymore. To Tang Yuan, this was truly a matter of endless agony. He obviously wanted to eat it, but once he ate it, he would feel sick of it. After swallowing it for a long time, his stomach could not take it anymore. So, Fatty clenched his teeth, stomped his feet, and announced with infinite grief and indignation, "From now on, I won't eat fatty meat anymore." At this point, it was officially announced that Tang Yuan had lost weight successfully. Chapter 526. Fatty was also a smart man. He quickly understood that all of this was obviously a ploy by Jun Moxie. In fact, there were many flaws in the previous incident, but there was no time to think about it in a matter of life and death. Fatty did not know whether to laugh or cry. He actually did not know whether to go forward to thank him or settle the score. Then, Jun Moxie carefully selected a martial technique and let Sun Xiaomei force Fatty to practice it. Fatty Tang's weight loss also caused a small joke. One day, he went back to the Tang family to take a look, but was stopped by the guards at the door and refused to let him in no matter what. "I really don't recognize you." Jun Moxie deeply felt a huge pressure during this period of time. The 3 holy lands were like 3 irresistible mountains pressing down on his heart. Jun Moxie himself did not expect that organizing an auction to earn some money would actually attract such 3 giants. With the Jun family's current strength, it was undeniably a super family in the secular world or even the world. But compared to the 3 holy lands, which were the pinnacle of power for tens of thousands of years, it was still far from enough. If the 3 holy lands were eagles and the ordinary families were chickens, then the Jun family was probably just a little higher than the ordinary families. If the 3 holy lands were really determined to destroy the current Jun family, then the Jun family's current seemingly tyrannical strength would not have any power to fight back. They could be destroyed in a single day. This kind of feeling of being on tenterhooks at any time and place made Jun Moxie very angry, but there was nothing he could do. At least for now, there was really nothing he could do. Since crossing over to this world, step by step, the overall strength of the Jun family had indeed undergone earth-shaking changes. From an ordinary official family, they had leaped several levels in one fell swoop to become the most powerful super family in the secular world. They even had relations with several great master-level powerhouses, and had the backing of a powerful alliance like the Tian Fa Forest. At this point in life, they could already be said to be unstoppable in the secular world. With such achievements, Jun Moxie was not without pride. All of this was built by him. Everything had been smooth sailing, and Jun Moxie couldn't help but admire his own intelligence. This was the sense of accomplishment of creating something out of nothing and conquering a great empire with bare hands. But now, in the face of the impending crisis, this achievement was not even worth mentioning and could not withstand a single blow. Jun Moxie was not willing to be like this. His own fate, the fate of his family, was actually in someone else's hands. It was for self-protection, and also for the anger in his heart. Therefore, during this period of time, Jun Moxie was practically risking his life. All the time, he was either in the Hongjun Pagoda concocting pills, cultivating, or running to the treasury to refine his blood of yellow flame. In 20 days, he had refined 3 batches of vitality linkage pills in one go, and he had also refined 2 batches of vitality congregation pills with 12 batches. As for heavenly vitality pills, mentioning this matter, tears streamed down Jun Moxie's face. In his heart, this heavenly vitality pill was the most difficult pill to refine out of the 3 great pills. But he had actually succeeded in one try. Moreover, there were 10 pills in one batch, and each pill was perfectly round and plump. All of them were high grade, and some were even of the highest grade. June Moxie finally fainted. So, I was wrong. This was actually the easiest. It's a pity that I've always treated it as the most difficult mountain to conquer. I'm really speechless. The gloomy June Dashao refined 5 batches in one go, and actually succeeded in all of them. He only managed to chew on one pill, and fiercely chewed on it twice before he could vent his anger. But in this period of time, he had been constantly refining pills, constantly overdrawing his energy, and constantly recovering. The bottleneck of June Moxie's Tianxian Peak had finally loosened. After taking that heavenly vitality pill, June Moxie had finally succeeded in raising his cultivation to Shinxian's level. 50 years of pure energy had loosened any bottleneck. June Dashao had broken through the bottleneck. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. So, he had also swallowed a soul-amassing pill. There was no harm in taking more of these pills as long as one's cultivation was high enough. Moreover, June Dashao had the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. So, it didn't seem that he couldn't bear it, or that his cultivation wasn't high enough. 20 days of hard work had finally come to an end. Apart from helping Tang Yuan lose weight, June Moxie would take the time to go home to take a look. But, he would immediately return to the Hongjun Pagoda when he found that there wasn't any movement. So, he would immediately go back to the Hongjun Pagoda. And, he would do it like a meteor shower. Bear Mountain and Earthcracker were very happy during this period of time. They spent their days in Tianxiang City, and indulged in debauchery. June Moxie didn't have the slightest intention of driving them back. Instead, he tried his best to make them stay. He was waiting for the day when the pills were refined. He wanted them to improve their strength before leaving. June Moxie was almost certain that the 2 Beast Kings would encounter a powerful and deadly ambush when they returned. So, they would have more assurance in protecting their lives if they could improve their strength. Moreover, he would have to help Tiger King break through his bottleneck at the very least. Then, he would have enough strength to protect himself. The blood of Yellow Flame had also been tempered to the extreme under the continuous tempering of the power of gold. June Moxie had been in high spirits. In fact, he had even tempered the 9 swords that he had previously refined several times. And, the amount of gold in the treasury had gone down by a whole pit. Fatty Tang would have cried out in distress if he had seen this. Prodigal ah, this is too prodigal ah, millions of gold tails have vanished into thin air without a trace. June Moxie came out of the Hongjun Pagoda early in the morning. He took a bath, and put on his snow-white clothes. Then, he walked towards Guanqing Han's courtyard with the fruits of his labor in his bosom. Everyone had been anxiously waiting for this day. It was urgent, elegant fragrance courtyard, don't say that only women go shopping like crazy. In fact, men who haven't gone shopping in their entire lives, are the same. Especially Bear Mountain and Earthcracker. How many times have they gone shopping? Therefore, even the craziest woman would have to concede defeat in their current state. They would buy whatever they saw, and never haggle over the price. They would just take it and leave. The biggest advantage of a man is his straightforwardness. In fact, the main characters of the Tian Fa forest, Bear King and Tiger King, were bowing their heads as they were being reprimanded. These 2 Beast Kings had taken the gold and silver that June Moxie had given them. These days, the 2 Beast Kings had taken the gold and silver that June Moxie had given them. So, they had crazily plundered every big shop in the Tianxiang city. They had bought everything that was pleasing to the eye. They had bought everything that was expensive. And, the amount of gold and silver notes they had bought had rapidly shrunk. But, the things they had bought had increased with each passing day. In fact, the number of things they had bought had increased at the speed of a small hill. Mei Shuiyan and Snake King had been concentrating on digesting the power of the vitality linkage pill these days. So, they didn't have the spare time to care about these trivial matters. So, they had inadvertently discovered that the Jun family's front yard had been piled up with a mountain of goods. The two Beast Kings were quite smart. They had placed all the things they had bought in the front yard. And, they had kept them out of Mei Shuiyan's line of sight. Mei Shuiyan usually stayed in the elegant fragrance courtyard. So, she wouldn't go out. So, the two of them had thought that they would be able to escape this calamity by doing this. Then, they would wait until they returned to the Tian Fa forest. So, it was a pity that they had been discovered in the end, so, the two of them hadn't even had the time to go out and continue their crazy shopping when they were stopped by Mei Shuiyan. The two Beast Kings were paralyzed on the ground when Jun Moxie arrived. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. Their faces were trembling with fear. In fact, they didn't even dare to move. Qian Sun Serpent Queen was watching them from the side. She was taking pleasure in their misfortune. She didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for them. It seemed very pleasing to watch these two gluttons get scolded. Guan Qinghan pursed her lips and smiled on the side. This situation wasn't strange at all. After all, Mei Shuiyan was going to sort these two out in 2 or 3 days. Guan Qinghan had tried to persuade them out of kindness in the beginning. But, she had come to know that these two were shameless, and couldn't be cooked properly. So, she naturally wasn't in the mood to try and persuade them. Who would be in the mood to plead for leniency on their behalf if they saw these two shameless, mischievous, and fawning people after they had been beaten up like crazy? Mei Shuiyan's anger hadn't subsided yet. So, she grabbed a woman's silk robe, and threw it on Earthcracker's body. Earthcracker, I wouldn't have pursued this matter if you had bought something useful. But, I don't understand. There are only Xian beasts and wild beasts in the Tian Fa forest. So, why did you buy so many women's clothes? Are you going to wear them? Or are you going to wear them for your tigers? And this, you're out of your mind. Several large clothes were thrown on Earthcracker's body. A box was opened, and a fragrant aroma filled the air. It was a box of rouge and powder. Earthcracker's face was full of embarrassment. He kept saying, Mei Shuiyan was furious. Why did you buy this nuisance? Do you want me to rub it on your fur? Huh? Earthcracker, you're really promising. You didn't buy anything except for a bunch of women's things. You even bought a bracelet. This. Suddenly, she became furious. What is this? Foot binding cloth. Earthcracker. Who are you going to use these for? Earthcracker kept wiping his cold sweat. He didn't dare to speak. She kept glancing at Big Bear. Fourth elder brother, quickly say something. These are all things that you asked me to buy. You said that they were prepared for Big Sister's future palace maids. I'm being wrongly accused. Please say something. Bear Mountain was squatting on the ground. He couldn't help but let out a ha-ha sound. His whole body twitched as he took pleasure in other people's misfortune. Jun Mo Xia, who was standing at the door, couldn't help but chuckle. What are you laughing at? You still have the face to laugh. Bear Mountain, you stupid bear. Look at the things you've bought. Look at this, and this. Bear Mountain's body was suddenly covered with all kinds of things. Chapter 527. It's winter, cold. Bear Mountain stammered. He was sweating profusely. Just now, he was grinning and laughing at the misfortune of others. Suddenly, he was scolded to his face. He was immediately dumbfounded, and his expression strangely stiffened. Cold. Mei Shuiyan kicked Bear Mountain, and he rolled away. You hibernate every winter. You've been like this for thousands of years. Why are you cold? You're a bear, and you wear a coat made of bear skin. What are you thinking? You're too talented. You really think of yourself as a senior. You can only pretend to be like June Moxie. Aren't you ashamed? June Moxie was laughing at first. But, he became depressed as he listened. Why are you talking about me? Didn't I just pretend to be stupid? I'm not really stupid. Why are you insulting me like this? Big Bear and Earthcracker had sullen expressions on their faces. They were completely speechless. That's right. Why didn't Old Bear hibernate this year? Why is he alive and kicking? June Moxie saw that the two were in a sorry state. He couldn't run anymore. So, he simply changed the topic and tried to smooth things over. When did you come? Why do you have to do everything? He's the Bear King. What if he hibernates? I haven't said anything about you yet. Tell me, why did you give those two idiots so much money for no reason? Mei Shuiyan rolled her eyes. She was about to say something when she saw his face full of pride. She couldn't help but ask, what's the matter? Why are you so happy? Mei Shuiyan instantly thought that June Dashao might have succeeded in concocting pills. So, she couldn't help but speak with a hint of expectation. June Mo Xia took a big step forward and chuckled. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Shui Yan, you can count the number of people now. As long as there aren't too many people, there shouldn't be a problem. Mei Shuiyan raised her eyebrows. How dare he call me by my name? But then she regained her composure. Could it be that the elixir has been successfully refined? She immediately forgot about settling the score with him. She rolled her eyes at him, curled her fingers, and silently counted in her heart. The eyes of Bear Mountain and Earthcracker lit up. They secretly gave a thumbs up to June Moxie. His progress is so fast. He's even calling him by his nickname now. He's worthy of being my brother-in-law. He actually had Big Sister under his thumb. The two Beast Kings looked at June Mo Xia with admiration in their eyes. What an amazing person. 10 places are enough. Mei Shuiyan closed her eyes and counted. She sighed and said, 10. Are you sure? June Moxie was very surprised. He thought that Mei Shuiyan would include the 9th level peak Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest. He didn't expect that Mei Shuiyan would only ask for 10 places. I'm sure. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath. 10 is a lot. One can't be too greedy. Those 9th level peak Xian beasts are only one step away from transforming. But, how can everything be reaped without sowing? It would be more beneficial to the management of the Tian Fa forest if we simply increase the strength of the Beast Kings. As for the rest, I'll go back and slowly select them. Then, we'll talk about it after I train them. It would be a headache if a few of them are wild and untamable. June Moxie clapped his hands in appreciation. Not bad, not bad. This is the right thing to do. Streamlined administration is exactly like this. Only when the current Beast Kings are completely above the other Xian beasts and establish absolute authority can we consider the future development without being hindered. Shui Yan, you are very thoughtful. He turned around and sat down. Then, he took out a jade bottle from his bosom and placed it on the table. Suddenly, everyone's eyes were attracted to it. There are 5 vitality linkage pills in this bottle. Plus, you've already taken one. So, there are 10 pills in total. June Moxie said in a deep voice, however, I suggest that Tiger King, Bear King, and Snake King don't wait until they return to the Tian Fa forest. They should take them here. Then, you can protect them and help them improve. The sooner, the better. What do you think? Qian Sun has already taken one. But, those two are very hot-tempered. Moreover, they don't think before doing things. What if their strength increases here and they go back to act like a tyrant? Wouldn't that make me seem inconsiderate? Mei Shuiyan glanced at Bear Mountain and Earthcracker from the corner of her eyes. She seemed somewhat worried. Big Bear and Earthcracker were overjoyed when they heard that they could eat pills that could enhance their martial power. Ha! Big Bear and Earthcracker were overjoyed when they heard Mei Shuiyan's words. And, the faces of the two Beast Kings collapsed. Mei Shuiyan could be said to understand them very well. The two Beast Kings had just been thinking, I must let Old Crane and the others know how powerful I am after I improve my strength. But, how could they have known that Mei Shuiyan would reject this idea before they could even finish their dream? Otherwise, how could Old Bear and Tiger King do such a thing even though they are straightforward by nature? Even if they had started a massacre at the gates of the Tianxiang city a few days ago, that unlucky second prince was blind, and wanted to take the elixirs from them. As far as I know, they had started a massacre on their way from the Tiannan city to the Tianxiang city. But, they had never provoked anyone first. In fact, it was others who had provoked them first. June Moxie said in an awe-inspiring manner, so, I believe that they would never do such a thing. The two Beast Kings were completely moved. They looked at June Moxie with tears in their eyes. Brother-in-law is so good. You are our brother-in-law for life. We won't agree even if elder sister wants to change brother-in-law. They would at most beat up Long Crane, that's all. The two of them would never try to usurp the throne, June Mo Xia continued. The two Beast Kings fainted at the same time. Do we look like people who would try to usurp the throne? Moreover, don't tell me you didn't expect this. Their journey back to Tian Fa won't be as smooth as it was when they came here. June Moxie continued. His complexion had become very dignified, we must improve our strength as soon as possible. You must know that they might have to face the three holy lands on their way back. They can only protect themselves in a one-on-one fight with their current level of martial arts. So, they can forget about being besieged. This is life-saving, it's not child's play. Their lives will be in danger at every turn. And, their strength will certainly be damaged even if they are lucky enough to return to Tian Fa. Do you want them to end up like Lion King and Monkey King? Mei Shuiyan's complexion became heavy. She pondered for a moment and said, what do you think are the chances of them intercepting Old Bear and Tiger King? June Moxie smiled bitterly and said, you know the answer. But, you just don't want to believe it. So, there's at least an 80% chance of success. Are you willing to gamble with your brother's life even if there's only a 50% chance? Mei Shuiyan remained silent. But, her eyes were faintly emitting anger. She said resolutely, what you said makes sense. I was indeed inconsiderate before. So, let them finish their advancement here. Then, they can return to Tian Fa. June Moxie nodded and said, that's right. Bear Mountain and Earthcracker were beside themselves with joy. I hadn't expected that elder sister would admit that she was inconsiderate. Brother-in-law is brilliant. You've won this opportunity with just a few words. Wow! When has elder sister ever changed her mind in Tian Fa? Brother-in-law is a high-level expert. Brother-in-law, dear brother-in-law, we are so adorable to you. The two Beast Kings almost shouted out their last words. But, they managed to restrain themselves with great difficulty. As for the possibility of interceptions along the way, the two Beast Kings didn't take it too seriously since they were naturally belligerent. The two Beast Kings had been fighting non-stop since they were young. In fact, it could be said that fighting had become part of their nature. So what if they have experts from the three holy lands? We don't know how many times we've walked through life and death situations in our lives. So, how can an interception take our lives? Especially Bear Mountain, who had made a breakthrough in his strength. So, he wanted to test how high his current strength was. And, how much progress he had made. Intercept us. Pfft. This is a big joke. Hurry up and intercept us. We want to see who will take whose life. Elephant Lion 6 and Monkey 7 are the same. Their strength was just at the beginning. They were still a long way from the peak of the Beast King level. Moreover, they were ambushed by the 4 great masters. So, they were unfortunately defeated. We've been at the peak of the Beast King level for a long time. So, we'll have an astonishing growth if we can make a breakthrough this time. Then, we won't pay any attention even if a real expert intercepts us on the way. Mei Shuyan thought for a moment and said, let's not touch the 5 new pills for now. We'll distribute them after we return to the Tianfa forest. Take the pills I have here first. She took out a jade bottle from her bosom and poured out 3 pills from it. One of them was put into the jade bottle that June Moxie had placed on the table, making a total of 6 pills. Snake King had already taken 1. So, Mei Shuyan only had 3 left. Just as she was about to let the 2 Beast Kings take them, she heard June Moxie say, wait. Everyone looked at him in surprise. He took out another jade bottle from his bosom and chuckled. These are heavenly vitality pills. There are a total of 10 of them. Each pill can increase one's pure internal energy by 50 years. Each person can only take 1 pill. I think you should take 1 first and increase your internal energy by a certain amount. Then, you can take the vitality linkage pill to increase your speed. That's the most effective way. Maybe you'll get twice the result with half the effort. Mei Shuyan exclaimed softly. Her body was trembling slightly. 1 heavenly vitality pill could increase one's pure internal energy by 50 years. The value of these 2 pills was obvious. But June Moxie didn't hesitate to take them out. For the past few days, June Moxie had been missing. He must have been working hard for these pills. And all of this was for her own safety. He was worried about her. All of a sudden, Mei Shuyan felt a strong sense of happiness and satisfaction from being cared for and loved by someone. This kind of feeling, in her life, this kind of feeling had never appeared before. Moreover, her Xian Qi was peerless, and she could roam the world unhindered. Who could give her such an opportunity? Chapter 528. The 3rd chapter. The 3 flowers formed by the thick fog returned to Mei Shuyan's body with a whooshing sound after a while. Then, Mei Shuyan gently opened her eyes, and looked at June Moxie with a strange glint in her eyes. Her heart was surging up and down, and her expression was complicated. That's right. Mei Shuyan could clearly feel that her elemental energy had indeed increased tremendously in this short period of time. She had gained 50 years of pure strength. In fact, it was even more than that. Mei Shuyan had been besieged by the top 10 experts, and had unfortunately sustained serious injuries. She had barely managed to escape back to the Tianfa forest. However, her injuries could be said to be extremely serious. Her body had been riddled with palm wounds, sword wounds, and knife wounds. Moreover, she had been struck by an extremely sinister martial art. That sinister yin qi had remained entrenched in her body, and couldn't be driven out. Mei Shuyan had painstakingly healed herself for decades. She had even reverted to her Xian beast form to cultivate. But, her injuries hadn't been completely healed. Mei Shuyan had been soft-hearted at that time. She hadn't used her full strength in the beginning. She had always thought that these people were the main forces of the war for seizing the heavens. So, they could easily affect the safety of the entire continent. So, she couldn't afford to hurt them. Therefore, she had suffered a huge loss. Mei Shuyan would have perished a long time ago if it weren't for her exceptional strength. That heavy injury had been a step away from a disaster for Mei Shuyan. So, how could the besiegement of the top 10 great masters be a small matter? However, she had struggled countless times at the gates of hell during that battle. Mei Shuyan had finally felt the edge of recovery on the eve of the Battle of Tianfa. But, she had been frightened during the most critical process. She had been on the verge of success when the sacred fruit had been stolen. Her mind had been agitated, and her strength had suffered a backlash. And, she had been beaten back to her original form in an instant. Coincidentally, June Moxie barged in when she couldn't move. He thought it was just an ordinary animal and played a prank on it. Mei Shuiyan was so ashamed that she wanted to die, but she couldn't do anything about it. However, Jun Moxie unexpectedly used his heaven and earth reiki to heal her, which had a great healing effect. Although it wasn't enough to make her recover completely, it had eliminated most of her old ailments. Even the backlash from her elemental energy was no longer a problem. After Jun Moxie left, Mei Shuiyan concentrated on cultivating and finally recovered about 80% of her strength. She successfully suppressed her old injuries and fought against the 4 Supreme Masters. And won in one fell swoop. However, Mei Shuiyan knew that her injuries were far from being completely healed. Moreover, the war for seizing the heavens was just around the corner, and she didn't have any confidence in her current condition. That was why she had suggested traveling the continent, hoping to find some opportunities to completely recover. And, following beside Jun Moxie was a premeditated arrangement of hers. That was because Jun Moxie's heaven and earth reiki was the supreme method to heal her injuries. Jun Moxie had bullied her, but she needed Jun Moxie's heaven and earth reiki to heal her injuries. This was a complicated and indescribable relationship. Mei Shuiyan had been tormented by these two emotions along the way, and had become exhausted. But, Jun Moxie had been triumphant all the way. This had made Mei Shuiyan even more indignant. Therefore, she had plotted and teased him again and again. But, this guy had taken all of her ploys. Even if he hadn't taken all of her ploys, this guy's skin was so thick that it was unparalleled in the world. His face hadn't even turned red once. What kind of person is he? Although Mei Shuiyan urgently needed Jun Moxie's heaven and earth reiki to heal her injuries, she was still a Tian Fa beast king. How could she lower her face to beg him? After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, she still couldn't make up her mind. So, when she entered Tianxiang City, she left with the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. When the two of them met again, Jun Moxie had used an extremely shameless method. Not only had he spanked her buttocks, he had even kissed her. This had caused Mei Shuiyan's heart to be thrown into a mess. She definitely couldn't kill him. She also couldn't hit him too hard. As for reprimanding him, it was useless against this thick-skinned guy. Mei Shuiyan had been at a loss. Coincidentally, she had heard Jun Moxie inviting her to stay at the Jun residence. She had been infatuated with him, and had agreed in a muddle-headed manner, but after interacting with him for a long time, she didn't know why, but the shadow of this shameless youth had slowly entered her heart. The calm lake of her heart that had been calm for a long time had suddenly become chaotic, especially during this period of time. Although her injuries had yet to recover, the vitality linkage pill that Jun Moxie had given her had increased her speed by 3 times. And this heavenly vitality pill had replenished 50 years' worth of pure origin energy. Her injuries had actually shown signs of recovery under the effects of these 2 pills. In this way, once she recovered, not only would she be able to regain her peak strength, she would even have a high chance of advancing a step further. Even though it wouldn't be able to make up for the gaps in her strength, it wouldn't be too far off. Actually, to make up for the gaps in her strength, she didn't need anything else. She just needed to receive this youth's heaven and earth reiki once a day, just like that time in the Tian Fa forest. She believed that it wouldn't take too long for her to improve greatly. But that seemed back then. It was really too. Even if Jun Moxie was willing, would she be willing? How many more miracles did this strange youth that people loved and hated at the same time have? The Snake King, Bear King, and Tiger King were still deep in meditation. Their strength was naturally far from Mei Shuiyan's. Now that they had suddenly gained 50 years' worth of strength, even with their supreme martial artist abilities, they would need to spend a lot of time to digest and absorb it. Jun Moxie finally realized that the great beauty Mei was fixedly looking at him. In fact, it seemed as if she was watching him attentively. Therefore, he couldn't help but feel good about it. So, he made a few poses and pretended that he didn't know what she was looking at. Just look at this young master's charm. After a long time, Mei Shuiyan was still staring at him. Jun Dashao finally couldn't take it anymore and laughed bitterly. Why are you looking at me like that? Are you mesmerized? Do you think that I'm especially handsome? Especially sunny, especially handsome, and especially different from the rest? Although this young master is handsome and extraordinary, but if you look at me like that, I will still feel a little embarrassed. Mei Shuyan finally collected her thoughts and smiled sweetly. Maybe it's because we haven't known each other for a long time. I really don't feel that way about what you said. But your especially thick skin makes me feel that you are very different from the rest. You actually feel embarrassed? Jun Moxie rubbed his nose and laughed dryly. Being thick-skinned is actually a kind of advantage. Haven't you noticed? The saints said it well, if you are thin-skinned, you can't eat, if you are thick-skinned, you can eat your fill. Whether it's eating, drinking, or finding a wife, only those who are thick-skinned can get there first. Those who are thin-skinned can at most only pick up the good words of others. Picking up other people's leftovers is meaningless. In any case, I don't like that kind of food. Is that so? So you're saying that being thick-skinned is the greatest advantage? Mei Shuyan said with a mocking tone. Although it's not accurate, it's not far from it. Whether it's to get promoted, to get rich, to lead an army in a war, or to have the heart of an emperor or the talent of a hero, there's no one who doesn't have this essential factor to achieve the final victory. You have to know that there are 4 essential factors for a successful person. Not one of them can be missing. Jun Moxie boasted. 4 essential factors. Don't switch the topic with me. Be frank and tell me clearly. Mei Shuyan's curiosity was really piqued. Since she had nothing better to do, listening to him boast was also a way to kill time. The first essential factor is to be two-faced. Jun Moxie said seriously. If you're not two-faced, the chances of success are slim. This point was especially important, as countless schemes and plots had originated from this point. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the foundation of success. What's the second point? Mei Shuyan thought about it carefully and felt that this point was reasonable. The second point is to be bold. You have to dare to think, and you have to dare to do it. For most things, if you dare to think, you're already halfway to success. What others don't dare to do, you have the guts. You have a higher chance of success compared to others. Jun Moxie looked like a great scholar. He shook his head and lectured tirelessly. The third point. Mei Shuyan thought for a while and smiled. Bold, needless to say. How many things can a timid person achieve? Even if he sells vegetables, he'll be bullied. The third point is the most important. Be ruthless. Everything was done with him as the center. Anyone who infringed on his interests would be killed without mercy. He would mercilessly destroy everything that stood in his way. I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. Only in this way can one become an emperor, and even establish a foundation for eternity. Jun Mocs nodded. As he spoke till here, he couldn't help but think of Li Yuran. Ever since the rise of the Jun family, Li Yuran had been out of sight for a long time. There was almost no news about her. However, Jun Moxie had never let down his guard against the number one of the Li family's younger generation. Li Yuran was no longer a threat to him at his current level. In fact, the entire Li clan was nothing to him. But, he still had to guard against the crafty plots and schemes in that brat's mind. He had a belly full of wild ambitions. If he wasn't careful, he'd be used by him. I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. What a domineering phrase. But, it's true. What about the fourth point? Mei Shuyan gradually became serious. She seemed to feel that Jun Mocs wasn't just boasting, and that he was hinting at something. Is the fourth point even more obvious? Of course, it's being thick-skinned. Jun Moxie laughed loudly. Hee, how many of these 4 points do you think you have? Mei Shuyan tilted her head and asked, pretending to be serious. The second point is being bold and the fourth point is being thick-skinned. I've obviously reached the peak of perfection in these 2 points. I believe that in today's world, there are only a handful of people who can beat me in these 2 points. June Moxie played along and said seriously, as for the first point, black-bellied, and the third point, I only have half of them. Being emotional has always been my biggest weakness. It's hard for me to give up on my family, friends, and other things. June Moxie sighed. As for the first point, black-bellied, and the third point, ruthless, I only have half of them. Being emotional has always been my biggest weakness. It's hard for me to give up on my family and friends. The revolution hasn't succeeded yet. Comrade, you still need to work hard. Asterisk 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 asterisk. This is not the number of words charged. 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 Chapter 529. Mei Xuan was surprised to see that he admitted that he couldn't reach the other side. She couldn't help but laugh and ask, "What about me? You? Don't trample on my 4 elements. You're a fool." June Moxie bluntly said, "You only have one of the 4 factors. And that is courage. Moreover, it's the kind of pure courage that you have. But it's pure courage. If you don't have the other 3 elements, then you're stupid and bold. If you only know how to rush forward, you're useless. You're not as good as those who are timid and know how to protect themselves. They don't have any of the 4 elements. That way, you can live the rest of your life in peace. You're now a target for others to frame you. You're burdening yourself, burdening others, burdening your friends, and even burdening your whole family. You." Mei Xuan was infuriated. "Nonsense. Nonsense? You're a smart person. Think about it yourself," June Moxie sneered. "Let's talk about the time when the 10 great masters tried to stop you. It was the time when you were seriously injured. I didn't ask you about it, did I? But I can be sure. In the end, you were seriously injured and escaped, but the 10 great masters escaped unscathed. At most, they suffered some internal injuries when you were trying to break out of the encirclement. It wouldn't be life-threatening, and they wouldn't be disabled. As long as they recuperate, they'll be fine, right?" Mei Xuan looked at him angrily. Her snow-white teeth unconsciously bit her red lips. The look in her eyes slowly changed from anger to grief. Isn't this soft-heartedness? A woman's benevolence. June Moxie was merciless and continued to criticize coldly, "And you must have been seriously injured, or even on the verge of death. You exhausted all your strength to break out of the encirclement and escape. Those 10 great masters who were spared by your magnanimity certainly wouldn't be grateful, nor would they repay your kindness. They would only chase you more fiercely. Therefore, you fought your way back to the Tian Fa forest while being merciful. Is the whole process like this?" Mei Xuan painfully turned her head away. Although June Moxie had never seen or heard of it, he was right. She still couldn't understand why. Everyone wanted to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, for the sake of the continent, for the sake of the common people. Why must they fight among themselves? Killing my own allies? Could it be that this was not their ultimate goal? But he clearly knew that they were fighting against foreign invaders and protecting the mainland as their highest responsibility. He was very clear about this. Because those people also disregarded their own safety and disregarded their own lives when facing the enemy. Spill your hot blood on the top of the pillar of heaven's mountains and preserve your heroic soul between heaven and earth. Why? Could it be that even a Xian beast like him could understand this logic, but why couldn't they? Mei Xueyan didn't believe that they didn't understand, but she couldn't understand why. Killing him and executing Tian Fa Forest would only mean losing a capable ally in the war for seizing the heavens. In fact, they might even lose a great deal of their combat strength. Why must they do such a thing that harms others without benefiting themselves? Are you very confused? June Moxie looked at her coldly. Can't you understand no matter how much you think about it? Everyone obviously has the same goal, and we have the same enemy. We should cooperate sincerely and fight against the common enemy. Why must we kill each other for no reason? Isn't this making our own people suffer and our enemies happy? That's right. Why? I really don't understand. This question has always puzzled me. For thousands of years, when was Tian Fa not the vanguard of the war for seizing the heavens? When had he ever cowered? In these thousands of years, how many Tian Fa beast kings have died on the top of the pillar of heaven's mountains? Thousands. I dare to boldly say that without the support of Tian Fa Forest, this continent would no longer exist. Mei Xueyan's eyes were spitting fire. But now, the three holy lands want to kill Tian Fa. Why is this? Why? You Tian Fa beast kings have a pure heart. This is something that is difficult for us to achieve. But, this advantage of yours is also your biggest weakness. Don't deny it first. Let me ask you a question. June Moxie's eyes softened, but they were still sparkling. After countless war for seizing the heavens, there were 3 holy lands and 1 ominous land. But, why not the 4 holy lands? Why the 3 holy lands? Have you ever thought about this? Tian Fa Forest also contributed a lot. In fact, they were the one who contributed the most. So, why can't they be included in the Holy Lands? Why do they have to be named after the ominous land? This. Mei Xueyan hesitated. She had never thought about this question. Since ancient times, the 3 holy lands and 1 ominous land had shaken the continent. Mei Xueyan had never felt that there was anything wrong with it. She had only felt that it was natural. No one dared to offend Tian Fa's ominous land. That was why no human expert had dared to invade this Xian beast's holy land in the last thousands of years. But, now that June Moxie had mentioned it, she suddenly remembered. That's right. Why? Why do the other 3 have the title of Holy Land, while the Tian Fa Forest is called a dangerous place? You, or perhaps all the Xian beasts, have neglected a very important point. And, that is the pride of human beings. Or, it can be said that it is a kind of inexplicable vanity. Simply put, the Tian Fa Forest and the 3 holy lands were destined to be enemies at that time. June Moxie laughed mockingly. This is a ridiculous mentality of thinking that it is orthodox. That's why there is today's dispute. Orthodox? What do you mean? Mei Xueyan slowly took 2 steps back and sat down on a chair. You still don't understand? The so-called orthodox means that humans are the masters of this continent. Humans are the leaders. All civilizations and inheritances come from humans. Xian beasts are powerful, but they should only be the vassals of humans. But, in the war for seizing the heavens, it was your Tian Fa Forest who contributed the most. No one can deny this point. In the first war for seizing the heavens, if not for the Tian Fa forest, the continent would have already fallen into the hands of the strange races. This has already become the pride of the Tian Fa forest. But June Moxie's eyes shone brightly. In the eyes of many people who participated in the war for seizing the heavens, or those who are about to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, this is a disgrace to the human race. Because, it was because of a group of beasts that we were able to win the war and protect our homeland and lives. But, as long as the Tian Fa forest exists, this part of history will never be erased. With the passage of time, it will also be passed down for thousands of years. Only when the Tian Fa forest no longer exists, will this part of history be annihilated along with the wind. Generation after generation, because they did not have the confidence to win the war for seizing the heavens, and because they were afraid of the strange races taking advantage of the Tian Fa forest, they continued to exist until now. But, until now, one thing can be confirmed. That is, the three Holy Lands think that their wings are fully grown. In the future war for seizing the heavens, even without the Tian Fa forest, they will still be able to win without any worries. So, this is the time when the tragedy of the Tian Fa forest arrives. Humans treat their own kind in such a manner, let alone Yuxian beasts. Plus, coincidentally, the so-called dangerous land only has a fierce reputation, but not a fierce reality. This gives them the best reason. In this world where the fist is the biggest reason, don't feel wronged. The history books have always been written by the victors. Jun Mo Xia used a light and mocking tone to speak these words in one breath. Not wronged. Mei Shuyan shook her head absent-mindedly and muttered, My Tian Fa forest saint kings and beast kings have all spilled their blood on the pillar of heaven's mountains. They have always been proud of this. Who would have thought that today, they have always been used as tools? Not wronged. Why are you humans so despicable? How can I not be wronged? You really don't need to be so wronged, because the three Holy Lands will also disappear along with Tian Fa. What are you wronged about? June Moxie sighed. The three Holy Lands will also disappear. How is that possible? Mei Shuyan was really puzzled. The reason is very simple. Even if the three Holy Lands can successfully get rid of the Tian Fa forest this time, they will have to pay a considerable price. When the war for seizing the heavens begins, the first result will be the three Holy Lands dying in battle. The strange races will take over the continent, and even if the three Holy Lands have a successor, they will not be able to continue living. The result will only be eternal annihilation. June Moxie chuckled and said, The second possibility is that the three Holy Lands are really strong. They even won the war for seizing the heavens, and their confidence will naturally soar. The Tian Fa forest was no longer a fearsome target against the outside world. So, it was only natural that they would start to fight amongst themselves. And, they would strive for supremacy. In the end, there will only be one left. Do not doubt this, because this is the law of human development, and also the root of human weakness. It would be strange if they did not do this. Impossible. Working together to defend against foreign invaders is the teachings of the three Holy Lands. As long as the strange races are not completely annihilated, how can the three Holy Lands kill each other? Isn't this the same as forgetting their ancestors? Who can bear such a stain? If there is only one left, they will lose the motivation to compete, and a single tree will not be able to support a skyscraper. In the future, if the strange races successfully invade the continent in the war for seizing the heavens, wouldn't they be condemned by history? Mei Shuyan shook her head violently. She did not believe June Moxie's words at all. From this auction, you can see that the three Holy Lands are still in the same boat. Is it still possible for them to work together? Chapter 530. Ancestral Teachings. These words from thousands of years ago may have been the golden rule at that time, but they have become stale dogma with the passage of time. Could it really curb people's greed and vanity? No. Those who follow the ancestral teachings are all mediocre people, except for a very small number of wise people. Wise people are wise and far-sighted, so they don't touch it. Mediocre people don't have the ability to change it, so they can only follow it. Only when ambitious people appear who are brilliant and talented will the ancestral behest be interpreted as a fart by them, even though they know that it's a golden rule. No one will give up the glory, splendor, wealth, and the country at their fingertips for a fart. Geniuses and smart people don't mean that they have wisdom. June Moxie said coldly. Mei Shuiyan lowered her head weakly. She suddenly felt that the beliefs she had been holding on to since birth had collapsed at this moment. She held on with all her might, and weakly refuted, no. Impossible. What you said is all your own conjecture. There is no evidence. You personally experienced the ambush and the pursuit. Are they also guesses? Are they not evidence? You personally saw the open and veiled struggle of the three holy lands during the auction. Are they also guesses? Are they also evidence? You clearly heard Ning Wuqing's last words. I believe you know the meaning behind them better than I do. Are they also guesses? Are they not enough evidence? Hermitage and the Great Golden City saw that the illusory Blood Sea couldn't get more pills and were humiliated by us, but they were indifferent and even rejoiced in our misfortune. You were there to see it, and you did it yourself. Are these also guesses? What other evidence do you need? When we were far away in the Tian Fa forest, you were also angry because of what Lei Baoyu and Bu Kuangfeng said. Are those also guesses? Are the above evidence enough? Do you need more evidence? These 5 questions were like 5 heavy bombs, continuously exploding in Mei Shuiyan's heart. Mei Shuiyan's face suddenly turned pale, and her body swayed twice. Young Master June is right, big sister. You should really consider this carefully. Otherwise, no matter what happens to the humans, the Xian beasts of Tian Fa will not be able to escape the calamity. Qian Sun Serpent Queen's voice came from the side. She had finished her cultivation and had finally absorbed all the medicinal effects. Bear Mountain and Earth Cracker stood on one side. Their faces were full of indignation. They had clearly heard June Moxie's words. Mei Shuiyan's lips moved. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She just sighed deeply. The 3 holy lands have as many experts as there are clouds in the sky. This is undoubtedly a fact. However, I believe that there are very few who can be compared to you. I'm even more convinced that even if 10 great master-level experts were to join forces to ambush you, you would still be seriously injured. But, there shouldn't be many of them who can return unscathed, right? June Moxie said. With your strength, it's completely possible for you to kill a few, cripple a few more, and then escape with a body full of injuries. I even suspect that with your abilities, even if you don't consider the consequences and go all out, you'll still have a chance to escape unscathed. But, you didn't. You only escaped with serious injuries. Those 10 people were intact. June Moxie sighed deeply. The reason why they still want to set up a trap to deal with you is because they have this life-saving talisman in their hands. It's because they know that you won't kill them that they are so unscrupulous. So, you're just indulging them. Besides that, there's no other benefit. But, the war for seizing the heavens has always been entrusted to us by the Saint Kings. How can we ignore it? You humans can ignore the teachings of your ancestors, but we Xian beasts can't. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath and slowly knitted her brows. That's why I said that the pure hearts of Xian beasts are your greatest strength, but also your greatest weakness. There's one thing you need to be clear about. What I'm saying and doing now is only for you to protect your own life and the entire Tian Fa forest. I'm not asking you to withdraw from the war for seizing the heavens. June Moxie looked deeply at her. Of course, you have to participate in the war for seizing the heavens. Even if you don't participate, I won't be willing. But, in the face of threats and provocations, you can't blindly endure. If you need to kill, then kill. If you need to chop, then chop. Without them, the war for seizing the heavens may not be lost. But, if you're willing to die, you'll only take advantage of their wishes and harm all the Xian beasts of Tianfa. And, the war for seizing the heavens may not be won. How can this be the conduct of a beast emperor of Tianfa? You need to be clear about this. If you really make the wrong choice and lead to the destruction of the Xian beasts of Tianfa, I think you won't have the face to see the Saint Kings in the afterlife. Mei Shuyan pondered for a while. Then, her eyes slowly lit up. She slowly said, "Yes, I understand. So, I've always endured humiliation in order to carry out an important mission. But, it was a mistake. I've made a big mistake. I hope you've truly understood this time." Jun Moxie smiled. "Now, it's time to protect the two of them and take the vitality linkage pills." Mei Shuyan smiled and nodded. She was originally a wise and far-sighted person. But, she was too obsessed with the war for seizing the heavens. So, she was somewhat indecisive in her actions. She didn't have her usual decisiveness and perseverance. Now that the knot in her heart had been untied, she naturally regained the demeanor of the decisive Tianfa Great Master. 2 divine pills were taken by Bear Mountain and Earthcracker respectively. Then, they sat cross-legged and began to circulate their martial arts. Mei Shuyan, Jun Moxie, and Qian Sun didn't dare to be negligent. They were sitting calmly, but they could feel that each other's spirit sense had already spread out far and wide. Any change within a radius of several thousand feet wouldn't escape their senses. Jun Moxie went one step further. He emitted his own pure spirit energy, and helped the 2 beast kings to succeed. Mei Shuyan and Qian Sun were gradually astonished. Jun Moxie's progress was undoubtedly astonishing. But, he was only at the peak of Tian Xian's cultivation. So, how could his spirit sense be so powerful? Qian Sun even felt that she was inferior to Jun Moxie in this aspect. She couldn't help but feel strange. Could it be that he's hiding his strength? Mei Shuyan's strength was the strongest among the people present. So, her spirit sense was also the most sensitive. She had a clearer grasp of Jun Moxie's spirit sense. In fact, she had even sensed the direction in which Jun Moxie's spirit sense had spread out. And, she hadn't missed anything. But, what had surprised her the most was that Jun Moxie's spirit sense wasn't just powerful. Moreover, the places that Jun Moxie had probed were the weakest points in this area. In fact, many of them coincided with Mei Shuyan's. In fact, there were some places that even Mei Shuyan had overlooked. This matter sounded simple. But, how much experience did one need to be in order to accomplish this? Mei Shuyan was well aware of this. She had gone through a long period of battles. She had faced all the dangers before her transformation. She had cultivated her current battle wisdom over many years. But, this 17-year-old Jun Moxie was actually even more meticulous than her. Wasn't this extremely strange? While Mei Shuyan was in the midst of her astonishment, Jun Moxie suddenly asked in a seemingly unconscious manner, "Oh right, there's one thing that I still don't understand. How exactly did I offend you? You actually used so many crooked tricks to mess with me that day." Mei Shuyan was speechless. This question was no longer in the category of being easy to answer. She simply couldn't answer it. "From the very first time we met in the Tianfa forest, you seemed to have a lot of opinions about me." Jun Moxie maintained his spirit sense and aura, but he spoke with ease. Multitasking. This made Snake King and Mei Shuyan even more shocked. Because, when Jun Moxie spoke, his spirit sense didn't fluctuate at all. This kind of precise control was something that even Mei Shuyan could barely achieve. "This guy is a freak." They only heard Jun Moxie continue, "When you saw me, your hatred seemed to overflow to the heavens." Even Li Ju Tian had suffered an undeserved calamity at that time. Then, you caught me, but didn't kill me. Instead, you ruthlessly spanked me. My butt was swollen for several days. I still don't understand what this means. Do you have this kind of hobby? Recalling the situation at that time, Mei Shuai-yen couldn't help but smile faintly. However, a trace of embarrassment flashed across her face. Obviously, she was thinking of the time when she was bullied by this brat in Tianfa Forest. After that, you played with me the whole way from the southern heaven city to the Tianxiang Empire. We met again in the Tianxiang Empire, but you still spanked my butt. You didn't kill me, and you didn't cripple me either. You just spanked my butt. This is too strange, isn't it? June Moxie was puzzled. What kind of dog fart hobby is this? Isn't it because you were born with the appearance of someone asking for a beating? Who else would I beat if not you? Mei Shuai-yen coldly snorted. She didn't want to talk about this topic. Even if my appearance was repulsive. I could clearly feel that you were controlling your strength when you spanked me. You were afraid that you'd injure me. If you were in the Tianxiang Empire and knew about the importance of the divine pill, then it would have shown that you had some ulterior motive. But, you were like this when we first met in the southern heaven city. This really puzzled me. June Moxie wrinkled his brows and concluded, so, I concluded that I must have offended you. But, it wasn't a big matter. But, you couldn't bear it. And, you couldn't kill me. So, I fainted. Our relationship wasn't that complicated at that time, right? Mei Shuai-yen snorted, but didn't speak. She allowed him to let his imagination run wild. Her lips were tightly shut, and she didn't say a word. I haven't asked you yet. Shuai-yen. What is your original form? After the crisis passed, June Moxie began to call Mei Shuai-yen by her nickname again. You don't need to know that. Mei Shuai-yen glared at him. At the same time, she gave Qian Sun Serpent Queen a warning look, indicating that she mustn't reveal anything. Qian Sun Serpent Queen blinked her eyes, indicating that she understood. Are you kidding me? Mei Shuai-yen looked at June Moxie. If I let you know about my original form, wouldn't you know how you offended me? If that's the case, it's too embarrassing. It's fine if it's just embarrassing, but how are we going to interact in the future? The sequelae of my leg injury have been acting up these few days. I've been having cramps and pain. It hurt the whole night last night. It hurts so much that I'm sweating profusely. It's extremely painful. Last year, right before winter, this happened and it lasted for half a month. I didn't expect it to still hurt this year. Damn it, I went to the hospital today and the doctor said that it's normal. It'll be fine after a summer. A cold requires a drip for a few days. It's already good that my broken thigh bone can recover to this extent. You should be content. I really want to bang my head against the wall. I strongly requested to be injected with morphine to relieve the pain. The doctor rolled his eyes at me and said earnestly, young man, it's time for the motherland and the people to test you. You have to hold on. I'm going to faint. Chapter 531. Recalling the scene at that time, Mei Shuai-yen couldn't help but feel hot all over. Her face was burning hot, and she felt angry in her heart. She felt as if there was a big hand rubbing her, but, if you don't want to talk about it, then forget it. It's not a big deal. June Moxie sighed. He was bored to death. He tried to find something to talk about. Oh right, let me tell you something interesting. I saw a little thing in the Tianfa forest last time. He closed his eyes and thought for a while. Then he gestured with his hands and said, there was a little thing this long, a very small thing. Its whole body was white, and it had pointy ears. The tip of its nose was a little red, and its eyes were black like obsidian. On top of its head, there was a bunch of thin red hair. It was very cute. Especially her butt, it felt very nice when I rubbed it. I rubbed it for a long time. It was very comfortable. TSK, that little thing seemed to have suffered from internal injuries. I don't know what kind of cruel guy could do that to such a cute little thing. When you go back, help me take care of it. If you have the chance to see that little thing, catch it for me. I would rub her butt every day when I have nothing to do. It was quite fun. Xiao Yi has little white. It looks like it, but it's not as cute. I used to put it in my pants at that time. Ha ha ha. When he said this, he clearly heard Qian Sun Serpent Queen suck in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but look at her in puzzlement. Could it be that the little thing was actually hers? Qian Sun Serpent Queen hurriedly lowered her head. She was shocked in her heart. My God, isn't he talking about Big Sister? I finally know why Big Sister hates June Moxie so much, and the reason why she wants to go against him no matter what. So that's why. My God, how could it be like this? I didn't expect Big Sister to be so wantonly played by him. It's really shocking. Mei Shuiyan was speechless. This brat finally said it. And he actually wanted me to help him catch it. The most infuriating thing was that this guy still hadn't forgotten what he had said. Little thing, follow me, and I'll rub your butt every day. It feels so good. Also, he stuffed it in his pants. The most important thing was that his words were overheard by that little girl, Qian Sun Serpent Queen. At this moment, Mei Shuiyan almost wanted to strangle this blabbermouth to death on the spot. How infuriating. June Moxie saw her face blushing again and asked curiously, "What's wrong with you? Why is her face red again? Is it because you're not used to the sudden increase in power? With your cultivation, it shouldn't be." Behind him, the Snake King finally couldn't help but let out a gulp, as if he was about to burst out laughing, but he forcefully held it back. Shut up. Mei Shuiyan roared fiercely, as if she was going to eat someone alive. June Moxie shrunk his neck and obediently shut up. I can't afford to offend you, so I won't say anything, okay? She didn't know that no matter what he should or shouldn't say, he had just said it all. Whatever he should or shouldn't have heard, he had heard it all. Mei Shuiyan was so angry that her stomach was about to explode. This damned enemy, with a strange cry, Big Bear abruptly jumped up. His bare eyes were wide open, and his face was filled with disbelief. He twisted his buttocks a few times at a speed that the naked eye couldn't capture. Then, he suddenly burst into laughter. Wonderful. What kind of medicine is this? It's too miraculous. Damn it. After eating this pill, my yuan power circulation speed has increased so much. I'm not dreaming, right? Ha. Ha. Fuck. It increased by more than 3 times in one go. Wahahaha, I, Old Bear, can finally taste the feeling of being invincible in the world. Where is Old Crane? Come and fight with me, I will beat you black and blue. Later on, I will be third bear, no, I will be second bear, ha 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 ha. In almost half a year, Bear Mountain first took a 10 years pill, which increased his strength once. Then, with the help of June Moxie, he successfully broke through the bottleneck. His strength had been stagnant for a long time, and now, he took a heavenly restoration pill, which increased his pure magic power by 50 years. Then, he took a vitality linkage pill, which increased his speed by more than 3 times. How could this Bear King's confidence not burst to the brim with confidence after the continuous explosive improvements? Old Bear, you glutton, shut up. Snake King knew that Bear King's temper wasn't good, so he kindly shouted to stop Bear King. However, it seemed that it was too late. Mei Shuiyan turned her head, and her eyes seemed to be fixated on Bear Mountain's body. Facing such an irresistible pressure, Bear Mountain's body inexplicably shrank back. He suddenly remembered that his strength had increased greatly, so he wanted to confirm to what extent he had advanced. Even if he was still not as strong as Big Brother, he could still hold on for a while. He couldn't help but smile proudly and said, Big Brother, I want to exchange pointers with you. Qian Sun Serpent Queen covered her face. What a tragedy, What a complete tragedy. Humans, once they get carried away, extreme joy will turn to sorrow. It seemed that this not only applied to humans, but also to beasts. What is stupid? Isn't this it? Stupid, really too stupid. This stupid bear who got carried away was going to be ruthlessly abused today, and it was asking for it. Very good. I also wanted to spar with someone. Spar with them. It's rare that you volunteered. Today, I must exchange pointers with you. Mei Shuiyan clenched her teeth. She had a belly full of anger, but she had nowhere to vent it. And now, a sandbag had come out of nowhere. This was really fulfilling one's wish. A target had fallen from the sky. Moreover, it was a particularly tough target. Lenglang swept a glance at him. Then, she walked out of the courtyard and shouted, "Come out. Didn't you want to exchange pointers?" The pitiful bear mountain had just woken up after absorbing the medicine's potency. So, he didn't know anything about what had happened outside. He thought that it was just an ordinary exchange pointers. So, he followed Mei Shuiyan in high spirits. He grinned complacently along the way, and dreamt of a great increase in strength. In fact, the fourth bear mountain couldn't be blamed for this. He, the third crane, and Long Crane had broken through their bottlenecks with the help of June Moxie's spiritual energy. So, their strength had increased by leaps and bounds. It could be said that they had already reached the peak of the Great Master level. In fact, they were only one step away from the Great Master level. Moreover, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds with the help of the Heavenly Vitality Pill and the Vitality Linkage Pill. So, even the third crane, the Snake King, and the Tiger King wouldn't be his match. Therefore, it could be said that Bear Mountain's strength was the strongest among the Tian Fa Beast Kings apart from Mei Shuiyan. In fact, no one could compare notes with him except Mei Shuiyan. It was a fact that the fourth Bear Mountain's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. But, there was no doubt that Mei Shuiyan's strength was still far above his. Bear King was still afraid of his elder sister. But, his strength had improved, but he hadn't been able to verify it. So, he had been distressed. So, he had made this proposal. It was normal to look for an opportunity to exchange pointers after a breakthrough. But Bear King wouldn't have dared to provoke Mei Shuiyan at this time if he had heard even half a sentence of this conversation, even if he had the courage to do so. It was a pity that he hadn't heard it. One could defy the wrongs of the heavens, but one couldn't escape the wrongs brought upon oneself. Bear Mountain saw a slender silhouette coming over with a whizzing sound as soon as he came out. Bear King had just increased his elemental power, and his speed had also increased by 3 times. So, his strength was far from what it had been in the past. Moreover, his energy was abundant at the moment. So, he needed a place to vent it. Moreover, his self-confidence had also risen to an unprecedented height. So, he hadn't panicked even though he had seen his big brother rushing over at high speed. Instead, he had quickly responded. Bear Mountain's current strength was considered to be very strong. So, he wouldn't be a match for Venerable Mei if he were to encounter the 4 great masters in the Tian Fa forest. But, he would still be able to deal with him for a while. But, he wasn't the only one who had been taking pills these days. In fact, the others had also taken pills. Moreover, their progress was above his. There was already a huge gap between them. And now, the gap was even bigger. So, Old Bear was in for a tragedy. Bear King had thought that his speed had increased tremendously. Although this attack wasn't slow, he could still dodge it with his current speed. But, he didn't expect to feel an abrupt pain on his back. It was obvious that he had been hit hard on his back. He staggered and stumbled a few steps. Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly felt another pain on his buttocks. An irresistible force had attacked him. His body couldn't help but spin in a circle. Bang! 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 It was as if he had been beaten by a piece of leather. His stomach had suffered a series of heavy blows. Bear Mountain was sent rolling like a rubber ball. When he landed on the ground, he was like a gold ingot that had been blown away by a strong gale. He flipped a few times in succession. Up until now, he still hadn't reacted. His mind was in a mess. Didn't they say that we were going to exchange pointers? Why did they start fighting right away? And they didn't even give me a chance to counterattack. This is a spar. No matter how I look at it, it looks like they are just venting their anger. My progress isn't small. But, why do I feel that Big Brother's progress is even greater? Oh my God, I haven't even had the chance to take a stance yet. Did I bump into a big board again? He was just about to speak and beg for mercy. But, he had just opened his mouth when he suddenly received a heavy kick on his chin. He did a graceful backflip, and fell firmly on the ground. Then, he prostrated himself on the ground. He raised his neck with great difficulty, like a big turtle basking in the sun on the beach. Just as he was about to speak, his two eye sockets were punched a few times in a row, and he instantly turned from a bear to a panda. His prone position was also instantly flipped over, and he was now lying on his back. Big Bear Beast King was dizzy. Only now did he realize that something was wrong. He shouted, "Big Brother, spare me. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to play with such a bear." You don't want to play anymore? Do you think this is still up to you? Don't you want to be Big Brother Bear? Who are you going to bear if not me? Mei Shuiyan was merciless. She pounced on him like a gust of wind. She punched and kicked him. Every punch and every kick was mixed with a vast and irresistible force. Bear Mountain complained incessantly. He kept screaming, "What's going on? What's going on? When did I say that I want to be Big Brother Bear? At most, I want to be Second Brother Bear. How about I become Youngest Brother Bear? What's going on?" Qian Sun Serpent Queen looked at him sympathetically. "I told you to shut up long ago, but you didn't listen. You just had to look for trouble yourself. Who can you blame now?" Chapter 532. The sound of heavy objects hitting each other could be heard incessantly. Bear King's screams were earth-shattering. He finally found an opportunity to crawl up. Then, he started to run away in a daze. "Motherfucker, you're beating me to death." Then, he heard a cold voice behind him, "World Cage." Bear Mountain's feet were in front and back. He had been running madly for his life. But, he suddenly stopped there. His eyeballs turned wildly, and his face was full of remorse. Then, a storm of beatings started to fall on his body. Jun Moxie's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. The corners of his mouth twitched. "It turns out that Mei Shuiyan had only spanked my buttocks. That's a huge mercy. I've found such a wife. When will she be unhappy? Will I be her sparring partner? My God. I can't afford to provoke this woman if I don't have enough strength to deal with her. Otherwise, I'll get beaten up if I'm not careful." However, he was also amazed in his heart. Bear King is worthy of being called Bear King. His skin is thick and his flesh is really tough. He's really resistant to beatings. His ability to withstand beatings is really solid. Mei Shuiyan finally stopped after a series of firecracker-like beatings. She snorted, and stood there in an elegant and noble posture. Then, she smiled slightly. Then, she gently lifted her skirt, and slowly walked back into the room. Her posture was that of a natural aristocrat. She was like a fairy walking on the moon. Who could tell that this fairy-like person had just put on a show of abuse? Behind her, Big Bear wanted to cry but had no tears. His face was purple, and one of his heads had been upgraded from a bear's head to a pig's head. He lay limply on the ground and twitched. Speechless, he asked the heavens, feeling extremely wronged. Who did I offend? I want to show off my strength. Is that a crime? Is it necessary to torture me like this? Mei Shuiyan clapped her hands. She walked into the room with a refreshed body and mind. Then, she asked Earthcracker with a smile, "Ninth brother, how do you feel? Does it feel good to improve your strength? Do you also feel that you're invincible now? It's a little unfair to be the ninth." "No, no, no." Earthcracker shook his head like a rattle drum. Then, he bent down and smiled, "I'm just a small ant in front of Big Brother." "Big Brother, you've been training for so long. Aren't you tired? Do you want me to massage your back? My skills have increased, and my hand strength has also increased. Boss will definitely be satisfied." There's no need." "Earthcracker, you look stupid. But, you're much smarter than fourth brother bear." Mei Shuiyan took the cup of tea that Qian Sun had handed over. Then, she took a sip, and raised her eyelids. "You're flattering me. It's all because of Big Brother's guidance. It's all because of Big Brother's contribution." Earthcracker nodded and bowed. He beamed with joy. "What do you think about fourth brother Xiong? Do you think that I was too heavy-handed? After all, we're brothers." Mei Shuiyan glanced at him indifferently. Then, he puffed out his chest, and put on a serious face. His whole body exuded an awe-inspiring aura of righteousness. How could that be? This fourth brother bear overestimates his own capabilities. He thinks that his skills have improved a little. So, he dares to offend Big Brother's divine prestige. This is intolerable. Even I want to beat him up when I see his face. I realized it too late. Otherwise, Big Brother wouldn't have needed to make a move. I would have done it. This fourth brother bear has no respect for his superiors. He's lawless. So, Big Brother is very magnanimous in teaching him a lesson. I personally think that Big Brother shouldn't have been so lenient. People like fourth brother bear must be mercilessly punished and resolutely attacked. You mustn't let him off lightly. I strongly suggest that Big Brother imprison fourth brother bear when you return to the Tianfa forest. Then, he must pierce his mouth with a long bamboo pole, and hang him upside down from the top of a 1,000-year-old tree as a warning to others." Qian Sun and Jun Moxie were thunderstruck. They looked at Earthcracker with a dumbstruck expression. Who said that this man is an idiot? Look at this flattery. It's so powerful, especially when Earthcracker had said, lenient. This had left both of them shocked. After all, Bear Mountain's miserable condition was so bad that even a thief who had been caught and beaten up by the masses for 100 days would have felt that he was living in heaven if he had seen it. So, this is called lenient. This Earthcracker must have a limit to his **T, otherwise, why would his surname be Hu? Mei Shuiyan smiled and nodded. She was very gratified by Earthcracker's understanding of righteousness. So, she said in an amiable manner, "Well said. I didn't expect that you, ninth brother Hu, would be so knowledgeable." "Not at all. This is all thanks to Big Brother's nurturing." Earthcracker stood at attention. Earthcracker stole a glance at Bear Mountain. Then, he opened his big mouth, and started to laugh at his misfortune. He was overjoyed. However, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. I've finally passed this hurdle. Brother Bear, I'm sorry. You can't bully a tiger when you're a bear. Fortunately, Big Brother has already vented his anger. So, he hasn't transferred it to me. That fourth brother bear didn't open his eyes. He was courting death on his own. How could he be as wise, farsighted, and decisive as I am? Brothers are used as calamities. Earthcracker, you shameless little beast. Just wait for me. Bear Mountain's cries of grief and indignation could be heard from the field. In fact, it seemed as if he was weeping blood and destroying his liver. He was pounding the ground with his hands. And, he was banging his head against the ground. He was extremely frustrated and angry. His head must be fine because the ground had been deformed. Jun Moxie's eyebrows twitched wildly. This Tian Fa Forest's discipline method is really different from the rest. Mei Shuyan had intentionally or unintentionally cast a sidelong glance at June Moxie after she had finished dealing with the two beast kings. It was clear that she was trying to show off her strength. I'll punish you like this if you dare to provoke me again. But, you can continue to act presumptuously if you think that you're more resistant to punishment than these two. I'll be happy to have a channel to vent my anger. So, I won't mind. June Moxie curled his lips. However, he didn't take it to heart. You don't mind, and I don't mind either. His big eyes wandered on Mei Shuyan's face. Then, they slid down, and looked at Mei Shuyan's towering breasts. Then, he smiled mischievously. Then, he continued to look down. And, his gaze stopped on Mei Shuyan's pert buttocks for a while. Then, he raised his head, and faced Mei Shuyan with a faint smile. His meaning was very obvious. You're bragging. You think you can punish me? This young master has a way to punish you. Mei Shuyan felt as if there was a pair of invisible hands wandering around her body. She couldn't help but bite her lips. She glared at him fiercely. Then, she said, it should be enough now, right? Both of them have gone through this upgrade. Their strength has basically climbed to the level of a great master. They can easily defeat Lei Baoyu and Bukuang Feng. With the two of them working together, even if 3 or 4 experts like Ning Wuqing were to come, they would still be able to escape unscathed. Their strength has undoubtedly increased by a large margin. But, they still can't go on the road for the time being. June Moxie shook his head. They still need a few more days to adapt to their new speed and power. If they were to immediately participate in a life and death battle after such a sudden upgrade, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. It won't be too late to leave after they have adapted to everything. Especially Tiger King. His original strength was much weaker than Bear King's. Moreover, he has just received external medicine. If he can't control it as he pleases, it will easily lead to adverse effects. Mei Shuyan nodded slowly. What you say makes sense. Then, let's stay for a few more days. Also, I will use this time to ask my master in detail about what other medicinal ingredients are needed. I will make a list for them to bring back. This time, with your orders, we will need a lot of medicinal ingredients from all over the world. Although the amount we have now is not small, it is only a small part of the total. We can't be careless in this matter. We have to treat this matter as the most important matter. Mei Shuyan's expression became serious. She said, you don't have to worry about the medicinal ingredients. Leave it all to us Xian beasts. We must get all the medicinal ingredients we need at all costs. Even if there are none in Tian Fa Forest, as long as they exist in this world, I will find a way to get them. You don't need to be so extreme. I only said that I would let you see the true face of the 3 holy lands. But, I didn't say that the Xian beasts must be completely opposed to the entire human race. This time, they will be intercepted on their way back. I believe that they will be able to escape calmly because they underestimate their strength. But, the 3 holy lands may have already figured out the situation when they come back to deliver the medicinal ingredients. So, they won't be able to rely on just the 2 of them. So, we must double our manpower. By the way, Crane King has the ability to fly. So, it will be a foolproof plan if he carries the medicinal ingredients. June Moxie thought for a moment. I've also thought of this point. After all, this is the first time. We can catch them off guard. But, it won't be so smooth next time. It will be safer if Third Crane carries the medicinal ingredients in the air. But, the amount of medicinal ingredients that can be carried will be relatively small. It will be safe, but the time needed for the round trip will be. Mei Shuyan said. At this moment, Big Bear groaned and rubbed his buttocks as he got up and limped into the house. He looked docile and obedient, just like a lamb. Also, there are 10 of these pills. Each of you will take one. The four of you can take it now. You don't need to deliberately refine this medicine. Jun Moxie turned his palm, and a small jade bottle appeared in his palm. Don't need to refine it. What kind of strange medicine is this? Mei Xuan and the other three's eyes lit up. This is the soul-gathering pill. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. It won't increase your martial power or speed after taking it. So, there's no need to refine it. What's the use of it? Earthcracker opened his eyes wide. He was very curious. This medicine has only one effect: it gathers the spiritual energy of the world. It can increase the speed of the real elemental energy in your body by 3 times when you practice martial arts. In other words, 1 year of practice after taking the soul-gathering pill will be equivalent to 3 years of practice before taking it. Jun Moxie blinked his eyes, and smiled mischievously. The four of them opened their eyes wide, and inhaled at the same time. This is another heaven-defying medicine. Mei Xuan's face turned red. She gently took the jade bottle. Then, she cast a glance at Jun Moxie, and said in a low voice, "Then. I won't say thank you. You're asking for such a precious thing, and you're not saying thank you. What does this mean? We're a family. So, there's no need to be so polite. Saying thank you is like treating me as an outsider." Jun Moxie laughed heartily. Mei Xuan's face turned red again. She took out 4 pills, and the 4 of them quickly took them. Bear Mountain grimaced, and sucked in a cold breath. His whole body was aching. So, he hurriedly swallowed the pills. However, he didn't forget to tease them a little. That's natural. Elder sister and brother-in-law are here for the same purpose. So, there's no need to thank me. After a while, we'll have to sleep in the same bed and under the same blanket. Chapter 533. Bang! Bear Mountain screamed as he was sent flying backwards like a rocket. Then, he fell back to his previous position with a loud bang. He had been trapped by the world cage this time, and had been kicked out. So, he didn't have any leeway to unload the force. So, he fell hard on the ground, and almost fainted. Mei Xuan was standing at the door. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were radiating an angry radiance. This guy really doesn't know how to talk. What do you mean by sleeping on the same bed, and burrowing into the same quilt? Isn't this nonsense? It would be bad if elder sister and brother-in-law didn't burrow into the same quilt. Earthcracker stroked his beard in schadenfreude. He savored the fragrance of the pills in his mouth, and started to flatter Mei Xuan without restraint. He shook his head, and his face was full of complacency. But, he didn't realize that his flattery was even more off-target than Bear Mountain's. Big Bear had failed in his attempt to flatter Big Bear. Instead, he had slapped the horse's leg. However, Earthcracker's self-righteous words had added fuel to the fire. In fact, he had slapped the horse's hoof, therefore, he was also in a tragic situation. Who said that you can bully an old bear, but not a tiger? Brothers should be in trouble together. You also get lost. World cage. Mei Xuan flew into a rage. Bang! Bang! Earthcracker let out a blood-curdling screech. The latter half of his words got stuck in his throat. Then, he flew high in the air while waving his hands and feet. He then flew high in the air, and crashed into the gate of the elegant fragrance courtyard. He broke through the gate, and continued to fly until he crashed into the opposite wall. Then, he bounced back with a bang. He felt as if he was seeing stars in front of his eyes. In fact, it seemed as if the galaxy had suddenly appeared in front of him. He shook his head in a daze, and fell to the ground. He was even more miserable than Big Bear. Mei Xuan furiously flicked her sleeves, and went back to her room. Jun Moxie touched his nose. I can't take advantage of this situation anymore. I don't have a shield anymore. If I'm not careful, I might get another world cage on my head. So, I had no choice but to leave. Behind him, Qian Sun's Serpent Queen looked at Jun Moxie's back, and her expression changed. Suddenly, she sighed softly, and there was a hint of sadness in her voice. The next day, the Jun family's adoption ceremony finally opened after a long time of preparation. Accepting an adopted daughter shouldn't involve so many people. Especially since it wasn't old Master Jun Zhantian who was going to accept an adopted daughter. Instead, it was Jun Wu-yi who was going to accept an adopted daughter. Therefore, such a big fanfare seemed a little strange. But Guan Qinghan's identity was very sensitive, and coupled with the disturbance caused by the rotten scholars. This adoption ceremony was even more grand than the founding of a nation. At the very least, there weren't so many important people at the founding of the Tianxiang kingdom. Not only did the emperor and empress arrive together, but the 3 princes and a princess also personally came to congratulate her. Even the heads of the major families in the capital had come to congratulate her. Countless officials and generals from all over the country had come to congratulate her. Then, the major families of Xian Qi arrived one after another. The Sita clan, the Sikong clan, the Bailey clan, the Duanmu clan. One by one, the illustrious names were gradually announced from the mouth of the master of ceremonies. Everyone in the hall exclaimed in surprise. Although these people weren't officials of the secular world, they were all legendary figures who had long been famous. Today, for a trivial matter like the adoption of a daughter by Jun Wui, people from all over the country had rushed over. What did this mean? What did it mean? Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. Congratulations to the 3rd General Jun for adopting Miss Guan as his daughter. The fierce Gale swordsman, Feng Wanyun, congratulates you. The usually calm voice of the master of ceremonies Tian Xian, Song Shang, was trembling. The hurricane swordsman, Feng Wanyun, was a legendary figure. One of the newly promoted 8 great masters. To think that he had also come here. The hall was instantly silent. In the eyes of the crowd, a green-robed man walked straight in like an unsheathed sword. His expression was cold, his facial features smooth and firm, and his gaze was as sharp as a knife. Wherever he looked, people would feel as if they were being stabbed by a sharp sword. Feng Wanyun. Jun Wui was pleasantly surprised. Feng Wanyun's words were still ringing in his ears when he knew that he was in a desperate situation. Jun Wui, if you don't die today, I, Feng Wanyun, will drink with you and have a good chat. I, Feng Wanyun, see you in danger today, but I am powerless. I am sorry. I will repay the Jun family in the future. Farewell. This was the most touching sentence that Jun Wui had heard before the battle. 3rd General Jun, I, Feng Wanyun, have come to ask for a cup of wine. 3rd General, you won't mind, right? Seeing Jun Wui, Feng Wanyun showed a rare warm smile. Not at all, I am very grateful. Please, don't call me 3rd General. If you don't mind, just call me by my name. Jun Wui said warmly as he held Feng Wanyun's hand and walked into the hall. The big families stepped forward to chat with him. The fierce Gale swordsman, Feng Wanyun, was ranked last amongst the 8 great masters. But, he was the only one who couldn't be provoked aside from the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu Bei. He would draw his sword and kill people. He hated evil as if it was his personal enemy. Feng Wanyun nodded at them indifferently and walked over, not bothering to speak to these clan heads at all. Everyone smiled bitterly, but they all knew Feng Wanyun's temperament. He was a cold and arrogant person. Back in the Tianfa forest, Li Ju Tian had dared to draw his sword even though he was no match for the great master Li Ju Tian. In fact, he had even nearly killed Li Ju Tian's son. Li Ju Tian was a genuine great master. He was one of the 8 great masters of the world. Moreover, everyone was shocked and they arrived at the Jun family's residence. Although the Jun family's strength wasn't very strong, but they had the solitary falcon at their helm. So, they couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, Jun Zhantian and Jun Wuyi, father and son, had unexpectedly reached the spirit Xian level. This news was enough to make them inexplicably shocked. The Tianxiang Empire was a place where even Shen Xian was not present. But now, there were two Shen Xian experts. And they were from the same family. More importantly, they were from the God of War's family. Although the Jun family was not very important, they had collected detailed information about them. After all, they were the #1 military family in the country. According to the information, Jun Zhantian was only at the level of Tian Xian, so how did he become Shen Xian? Although Jun Wuyi had risen by accident, he was only a cripple at the level of Tian Xian. How did he suddenly become a Shen Xian expert? And he was healthy. Everything had happened so suddenly, so mysteriously, and so inconceivably. Ha, Feng Wanyun, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time. You're finally here. Let's go to the backyard and have a fight. Maybe I'll give you some benefits. Solitary Eagle came out with a burst of laughter. His whole body was filled with fighting spirit. A few days ago, Jun Wuyi had eaten the heavenly vitality pill and successfully raised his strength to the level of Shen Xian. Then, the three of them had taken the vitality gathering pill. Jun Wuyi had taken the vitality linkage pill, and the three of them had greatly improved their strength. This was nonsense. If they did not improve their strength, it would be ridiculous. The solitary falcon had been very happy lately. The falcon god had never imagined that he would be tied to this place because of a bet. However, he had improved his strength so much in less than a year. Not only did his skills and techniques have a breakthrough, but even his strength and speed had increased by an unbelievable amount. His strength had increased by at least 2 levels compared to before. The realms above the supreme martial artist that were unreachable in the past seemed to be within reach now. During this period of time, Solitary Eagle felt like he was dreaming. If he did not return to his hometown after becoming rich, it would be like walking at night in luxurious clothes. Now that his strength had improved, it would be like not returning to his hometown after becoming rich. It would be like not returning to his hometown after becoming rich. Now that his greatest rival, Feng Wanyun, had suddenly arrived, it was like a pie falling from the sky for Solitary Eagle. Feng Wanyun stared at Solitary Eagle for a long time before a look of extreme shock appeared in his eyes. He realized that although Solitary Eagle's Xian cultivation was strong and his movement techniques were above his own, they were still on par. In the Tian Fa forest, this fellow had defeated him with some strange moves, and Feng Wanyun had always been unconvinced. After thinking about it, he finally had the confidence to solve it. This time, he had come to the Jun family with the intention of challenging Solitary Eagle. But now that Solitary Eagle was standing in front of him, Feng Wanyun suddenly realized that this despicable eagle had reached a whole new level. Just by standing there, he was already giving off a strong sense of oppression. Even the air seemed to be a little sticky. Feng Wanyun was very familiar with this feeling. Only when facing an opponent that he could not match would he have this feeling of having his hands and feet tied. Could it be that I am really inferior to him? But, is this person really Solitary Eagle? How is this possible? Even if he was facing the great master of life and death, Shi Changshao, or the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu Bei, he would not feel so defeated. How did Solitary Eagle make such a huge improvement in such a short time? Could it be that he has already surpassed Shi Changshao? Could it be that he is chasing after Li Ju Tian? After a long time, Feng Wanyun revealed a bitter smile, and continued to stare at Solitary Falcon without blinking. There's no need to fight, I'm no match for you now. There is no point in fighting anymore. Solitary Eagle was very disheartened. Last night, he had fought with Earthcracker, the Tiger King, after his strength had increased. Although he seemed to have the upper hand because of his excellent agility, Solitary Eagle knew that he had suffered a great loss. Chapter 534. First update. I went to do acupuncture today and came back late. But I really want to know, how did you improve? Feng Wanyun stared at him without blinking. For this martial arts maniac, improving his strength was the most important thing in the world. I ate an elixir. Solitary Eagle snorted, his belly full of anger. I'm telling the truth, do you believe me? I believe you. Feng Wanyun said solemnly. Without the help of an elixir, how could he have improved so quickly? Solitary Eagle was completely speechless. This idiot. The two great masters entered the back hall, and the hall became lively again. Everyone looked at Jun Zhantian and his son in a different way. How much face did they have? One great master was watching over the house, and another great master came to congratulate them. At this time, Song Shang's trembling voice rang out again. Congratulations to 3rd General Jun for getting a daughter. The great master of life and death, Shi Changshao, has come to congratulate him. Present a pair of jade scepters. Boom! Another clap of thunder sounded. Everyone was stunned like a chicken that had been struck by lightning, and they didn't know what to say. Then, the great master of life and death, Shi Changshao, walked in with a smile on his face. Jun Zhantian personally welcomed him into the inner hall. Although Grandpa Jun had always been calm, he couldn't help but feel proud at this moment. Among all the civil and military officials in the imperial court, who had as much face as him? Grandpa Jun suddenly felt that today was the most glorious day of his life. And all of this was thanks to his grandson. With a grandson like this, what more could he ask for? So Grandpa Jun was extremely proud, and his grin almost reached the back of his ears. Suddenly, the great master of cold blood, Lei Wu Bei, has come to congratulate him. Congratulate him, and a treasured sword. Song Shang's lips were stuttering, and his eyes were wide open. Who would have thought that this cold-blooded madman would also come, and even send a congratulatory gift? The entire hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone felt a sense of absurdity from the bottom of their hearts. Is this world really so crazy? Are the 8 great masters going to have a meeting here today? Why are they coming one after another? There are already 4 of them. Look at the Jun family's face. Fuck. Not too long ago, that bunch of rotten scholars actually wanted to give him a hard time. If this wasn't simply asking for death, then what was? With their meager strength, how could they deal with the old Jun family? It was not enough at all. It wasn't even considered as delivering food, it was simply asking for trouble. Everyone looked at the Jun family members with reverence in their eyes. Even their voices had become much softer. He was afraid that one of the 4 great killing gods would be summoned. That would be terrible. Any one of these 4 great supremes would be able to deal with an ordinary aristocratic family as easily as turning over a palm. In an instant, he would be able to kill all of them. In the main room, the eyes of His Majesty, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly became unusually complicated. This table was filled with the top-notch bigwigs of the capital's imperial court. They had absolutely no connection with those profound Qi families. However, everyone had a solemn expression on their faces. Their gazes were complicated, and no one knew what they were thinking. A long while passed. Then, the emperor sighed and said, "It turns out that the Jun family is so prestigious. Hee, even I am somewhat envious." He had said this in a joking tone. Everyone laughed along with him. However, everyone clearly understood in their hearts that His Majesty wasn't joking. The 4 great supremes were people that even the emperor would find it difficult to invite. In fact, it was impossible for even one of them to do so. However, these 4 people had all come to the Jun family uninvited. What did this mean? It was obvious. The steward of the Guan family, Dong Lu, was smiling widely. His face was flushed, and it seemed as if every hair on his head was excited. He had never dreamed of such a grand occasion. In fact, he hadn't even dared to think about it. The entire Guan family had lost face after what had happened to Guan Qinghan. In fact, there had even been a rumor that the Guan family's discipline wasn't strict. Even the servants of the Jun family felt honored. They walked with their heads held high, and their waists out. Their waists were also straighter. The three great supremes have come to congratulate our third master. Li Yuren's face was pale in the crowd of congratulatory guests. She watched her master enter the inner hall. Her heart was filled with bitterness. She suddenly felt that the gap between her and Jun Moxie was like that of heaven and earth. In fact, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. I'm afraid that there's no hope of catching up with this gap. This guy is still fighting and walking dogs when I'm training hard. He's still flirting with women when I'm thinking of strategies. Everyone is praising me. But, they're still belittling this guy. But, I'm still making no progress when he's dominating the world. Why? How can this happen? I've sacrificed so much for my hopes and dreams. I've endured loneliness that most people can't bear. I've even buried my love. But, I've received such a blow just when I thought that I was close to success. Could it be that all my efforts were in vain? Li Yuren's heart was full of doubts. Could it be that my efforts have been a mistake? Success doesn't depend on hard work. Does it depend on fighting and walking dogs? Everyone in the entire Tianxiang city was watching with open eyes. Who had ever seen Jun Moxie's genuine efforts? Li Yuren's mind was extremely unbalanced. Li Yuren sighed. She waved her hand and beckoned a servant of the Jun family. Then, she asked, "Is your third young master Jun Moxie here? Why can't I see him on such a lively occasion?" The servant replied respectfully, replying to the esteemed guest, "The third young master is accompanying a guest in the backyard. Perhaps, he'll come over after a while." Accompanying a guest in the backyard? What kind of guest is he accompanying? Li Yuren's heart was shaken. What guest? He's even more important than the four great masters. He can make Jun Moxie ignore the emperor of Tianxiang city. He can't even meet the big shots of the imperial court. He can't even welcome the great masters. This can't be justified, right? This question and answer were unintentional. Li Yuren had asked in a casual manner. She didn't have any intention of bewitching the servant. And, the servant's reply had been blurted out. But, this unintentional conversation had made Li Yuren think even more deeply. Li Yuren's heart was at a loss as she looked at the Jun family's flourishing atmosphere of jubilation. He had worshipped his master, the cold-blooded great master, Lei Wubei, as if he were worshipping an immortal. He had thought that everything in the mortal world would be a piece of cake as long as he had the backing of this great master. However, he hadn't thought that his plans would be flawless. In fact, he had lost 8 of his fellow disciples. In fact, he hadn't even found out who the murderer was. She had always cherished and respected her master. But, she was now very dissatisfied. She looked at the Jun family. They hadn't deliberately fawned over her. But, they had just adopted a daughter. Yet, 3 great masters had come to congratulate them. This was the disparity between them. Is it really impossible to compare people with each other? Perhaps it's true. I used to look down on my peers with disdain. It's just that I need to look up to other people, and not myself. Li Yuren sighed in her heart. She called for a servant, and casually tipped him a banknote. Then, she said, "Please tell your third young master that I'd like to have a chat with him if he has the time." The servant respectfully replied, "Young Master Li, please be at ease." This lowly servant will definitely convey these words to young Master Li. However, you absolutely cannot accept the reward. Unexpectedly, he was exceptionally determined to return the large sum of banknotes. Li Yuren was startled. She hadn't expected that a little servant of the Jun family would be able to resist the temptation of such a large sum of money. It must be known that Li Yuren had casually tipped him. But, it was a banknote worth 500 taels of silver. And, this servant could only get 10 taels of silver a year. But, he had refused it without any hesitation. is this the disparity between us? The servant of the Jun family was indeed not boasting. Jun Dashao was currently in the backyard accompanying a group of guests. A group of esteemed guests. In the backyard, Jun Moxie was drinking tea with the Tian Fa Beast Kings. The Bear King and the Tiger King were going to return to the Tian Fa forest tomorrow. There were many things that Jun Moxie had to handle personally. Otherwise, these two would forget something. Not only would Mei Xuan go berserk, but Jun Moxie would also feel like crying. Besides, those esteemed guests really didn't need him. When they came out, they would only greet them with a fake smile. If they were to come out first, they would only be two-faced and hide a dagger in their smiles. That was simply torture. Jun Moxie always had a headache when it came to this kind of thing. So, he didn't plan to go out. Let's not talk about anything else. Why would Jun Dashao have to greet the Emperor of Tianxiang? Thinking about this, Old Man Jun and Third Master also felt that they might as well not let Jun Moxie attend. Anyway, he was a junior, so it was reasonable that he didn't get involved. Even if he was happy, they would be happy. As for whether everyone was happy, they didn't care so much. However, even Jun Moxie was a little surprised when he heard the arrival of the three great masters. Feng Wanyun's arrival was rather abrupt. However, this person had always appeared and disappeared mysteriously. He had a good impression of the Jun family, and he even had a little relationship with the third uncle. So, his sudden arrival was understandable. However, the arrival of Shi Changshao and Lei Wubei was more thought-provoking. It seemed that the Jun family didn't have any friendship with them. Not only did they not have any friendship, but 8 of Lei Wubei's top 10 disciples had perished by his hands. Moreover, the only one among them had been crippled by solitary eagle. What are these two doing here? Jun Moxie wrinkled his brows. He was puzzled no matter how hard he thought about it. He had only met them once during the Battle of Tian Fa. They weren't Feng Wanyun. So, they didn't have any friendship with the Jun family. Moreover, Jun Wui's adoption of a daughter wasn't a big deal. So, it wasn't worth it for two great masters to personally come and congratulate them. So, these two must have come with a purpose. As for the specific purpose. Chapter 535. Jun Moxie smiled, this is obvious. So, the problem certainly exists. I think that they have 3 goals. The first one should be related to the Silver Blizzard City. The second one should be related to the Jun family and Tian Fa. Then, they should be related to your whereabouts. And, the third one should be related to the pills and the alchemist. These problems are somewhat acute. But, they're not difficult to deal with. So, I reckon that there are some misunderstandings in my previous judgment. So, they may have other goals. But, I reckon that they're only the vanguard. And, they may not be able to set off any big storm. In fact, Old Ing is strong enough to defeat any one of them. Mei Xuan smiled faintly, that's right. They must have the ability to set off a storm even if they want to. Jun Moxie laughed heartily. Bear Mountain, Earthcracker, and the others also laughed. In this world, a bigger fist makes a bigger argument. This is an unchanging truth. Jun Moxie decided to increase the strength of the 4 Tian Fa kings after careful consideration. He didn't know why, but he was still feeling anxious in his heart. One must know that the huge amount of elixirs from Tian Fa was something that Jun Moxie and the Tian Fa kings couldn't afford to lose. Jun Moxie still felt that the strength of the 2 beast kings was too weak when they returned. In fact, they were somewhat unreliable. However, the 4 beast kings had already taken the heavenly essence, Tong Yuan, and Jiyuan Dan. So, Jun Moxie didn't have any suitable elixirs on hand for the time being. But, he was afraid that these people wouldn't be able to take it even if he had. So, he was afraid that they wouldn't be able to take it even if he did. So, he would have to rely on external help since he had already reached the limit of his own strength. I'll give each of you a suitable weapon for self-defense. This can also be considered as a farewell gift to Bear King and Tiger King. Jun Moxie pondered for a while. Then, he finally said this. Mei Xueyan and Qian Sun felt a chill in their hearts when they saw how serious Jun Moxie was. One must know that the 3 godly pills were already heaven-defying existences. But Jun Moxie had given them out without batting an eyelid. But when it came to weapons, he was evidently hesitant. In other words, this weapon had probably exceeded the scope of a so-called divine weapon, and it was probably an existence that was even more heaven-defying. Not to mention anything else, just based on Jun Moxie's blood of yellow flame, Mei Xueyan knew that if their strengths were equal, her Xian beast body might not be able to withstand the divine blade's slash. Only Bear Mountain and Earth Cracker shook their heads. We Xian beasts don't need weapons. Moreover, the so-called divine weapons of ordinary humans were simply too light. If one didn't use them, they wouldn't feel right. Forget it. Perhaps you might like these 2 weapons that I'm giving you. Jun Moxie smiled confidently. He had already made up his mind. So, he didn't hesitate any longer. He stretched out his right hand, and 2 long swords appeared in his hands out of thin air. They lay quietly on the ground. It seemed as if they had been there all along. No one had seen how these 2 swords had appeared. Even Mei Xueyan, whose strength was far above everyone else's, hadn't sensed it. The 2 swords had suddenly appeared in Jun Moxie's hands. And, they had pressed down on Jun Moxie's arm. So, it was obvious that their weight wasn't light. Clang! Jun Moxie gently pressed on the spring. The long swords issued a soft cry, and were unsheathed by half a foot. They shone brilliantly, and dazzled everyone's eyes. Suddenly, a cold air assaulted their faces. Mei Xueyan and the other 3 blurted out at the same time, "Good swords. This is a sharp weapon." Jun Moxie smiled faintly. He slowly pulled out the sword from its sheath. The sword was as clear as water. Its brilliance was circulating. It had a pleasing color. It seemed like gold, but it wasn't gold. It seemed like silver, but it wasn't silver. The sword was 3 feet long. It was similar to an ordinary sword. However, its width was more than 4 fingers. It was a rare broadsword. Jun Moxie turned his wrist, and the long sword slowly turned in a circle. Then, he gently tossed it up. The edge of the sword pointed downwards. Then, it slowly fell towards the stone table. Screech! An almost inaudible sound was heard. Then, an incredible scene appeared in front of the 4 beast kings. The long sword seemed as if a red-hot piece of iron had been plunged into cold butter. It didn't stop. It continued to plunge straight into the stone table. It slid all the way down to the hilt. Mei Xueyan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. She naturally knew that Jun Moxie's blood of yellow flame was a rare divine weapon, but she never imagined that he would have another such divine weapon. Furthermore, Jun Moxie had taken out 2 treasured swords just now, so the quality of these 2 treasured swords should be on par with each other. Then, Jun Moxie just said that he would give each of us a weapon. The quality of the weapons should be about the same. Could it be that the speed of the forging of weapons in this world is so shocking? Then what use is the body of the Xian beasts that we are so proud of? We have been waiting for so many years in Tianfa. Have we become frogs at the bottom of a well? But when she thought about it again, she instantly understood. If the world was really filled with divine weapons like this, the Tianfa forest would have been destroyed a long time ago. Mei Xueyan couldn't help but rejoice. The owner of such a divine weapon was him. Thank goodness it was him. Mei Xueyan lightly patted the table with her palm, and the long sword that was deeply embedded in the table bounced out with a "so" sound. It flew up in the air, and Mei Xueyan caught it in her hand. She couldn't help but be shocked. This sword looked only a little wider than an ordinary sword. But it actually weighed more than 100 jin. It must be known that an ordinary sword would at most weigh 6 to 7 jin. Even if it was specially forged or a heavy sword specially made for the battlefield, it was rare for it to weigh more than 15 jin. The weight of this sword clearly defied this common sense. Even a big stick or an iron awl would be too much for such a heavy sword. The sword was a light weapon. So, it would affect the flexibility and stability of the sword if it was too heavy. In fact, it would be disadvantageous to one's agility, footwork, and xian qi. Therefore, not many humans could use such a heavy sword. In fact, it seemed as if it was tailor-made for the beast kings of Tianfa. This sword is undoubtedly a good sword. It's a pity that it's a little cumbersome. I can also use it, but I might not be able to use it as I like. Mei Shuyan's slender fingers lightly flicked the blade of the sword. Then, a dragon's roar rose up in spirals, and lingered for a long time. In fact, it seemed as if it would linger for 3 days. Mei Shuyan had said that it was difficult to use it as she liked. But, she couldn't bear to part with it for a while. Then, she handed it over to Bear Mountain. Having witnessed such a godly weapon, Big Bear was already impatient. In most situations, he didn't use weapons, but it didn't mean that he didn't know how to use them. It was just that ordinary human weapons in his hands were basically like an elephant dancing with an embroidery needle. They were too weak, so he refused to use them. But, he liked this sword from the bottom of his heart the moment he saw it. He took it, and weighed it in his hands. And, he burst with joy. Such a weight is really easy to use. This brother-in-law of mine is really speechless. He's really my brother-in-law. Bear Mountain laughed heartily. Then, he leapt forward, and swung the sword in the air. Suddenly, a dragon's roar and tiger's roar resounded in the courtyard. But, it sounded like fireworks falling from the sky. And, it seemed like snow had dyed the mountains and rivers. The cold wind whistled, and the figure of the man disappeared. Earthcracker also couldn't help but grab the other sword. He was just as happy. It would be a lie to say that he didn't like such a weapon. The beast kings of Tianfa had been envious of the fact that humans had weapons on them ever since they had taken human form. But, they could only use their flesh and blood to fight. And, the weapons that humans had were not suitable for them. So, they had been longing for a weapon that they could use for many, many years. So, how could they not be ecstatic when they suddenly held a divine weapon in their hands? In fact, whether it was a divine weapon or not was secondary. But, the fact that it was easy to use was its greatest value. With a loud roar, Earthcracker took the lead and leapt forward. Then, he clashed with Bear Mountain. The two swords clashed, and the sound of wind and thunder could be heard amidst the whistling of the swords. The sword light was like snow, and the sword energy soared to the heavens. A long while passed before the two of them put away their swords in high spirits. Then, they walked over with beaming smiles on their faces. They held the swords in their bosoms as if they were treasures. In fact, they were afraid that someone would snatch them away. In fact, it seemed as if they had suddenly obtained their most beloved treasure. In fact, it seemed as if they wouldn't let go of it ever again. This sword is too awesome. Ha ha ha, I declare that this is mine. Bear Mountain was smiling so widely that his eyes couldn't even be seen. He was immensely proud of himself as he announced. Earthcracker lowered his head, and carefully wiped the blade of the sword with the lapel of his robe. His movements were very careful, and his hands and feet were very light. In fact, it seemed that he wouldn't have done this even if his wife had given birth to a tiger cub. Aren't you going to thank young Master June for giving you this sword? Do you think that you can take such a priceless treasure just because you say so? Why are you two idiots so unreasonable? Can't you two give me some face? Mei Shuyan raised her willowy eyebrows, and shouted angrily. Mei Shuyan felt that these two fellows had thoroughly thrown away her face ever since they had come here. Dog meat can't be served at the main table. Mei Shuiyan heaved a deep sigh in her heart. Elder sister, why are you like this? Why are you thanking us? Isn't it only natural that our brother-in-law is giving us this? We are his brother-in-law. So, what's the big deal about giving us 2 swords? Isn't that right, brother-in-law? Bear Mountain grinned, and laughed heartily in a self-satisfied manner. This guy is so thick-skinned. He's hundreds of years old. But, he's openly calling a 17 or 18-year-old boy brother-in-law. Moreover, he's even calling himself his brother-in-law. And, his face isn't even blushing. Earthcracker nodded in agreement. It was obvious that this guy was thinking the same thing. However, he was a bit more perceptive. He understood that there were some things that couldn't be said directly. Mei Shuiyan's face turned red. She suddenly became angry. Shut up. What kind of nonsense are you talking about, you idiot? Is it because yesterday's sparring wasn't enough? So, I've gotten a new sword today. So, I'll spar with you again. Her eyes emitted a cold light. She was about to attack. Bear Mountain immediately became dispirited. He didn't dare to utter another word. He was even more obedient than a baby bear. Earthcracker, who hadn't uttered a word, shrunk his neck. How is this a tiger king? Even a kitten isn't this obedient. Chapter 536. What truth? That's nonsense. What brother-in-law or younger brother-in-law was there to talk about? That's ridiculous. Mei Shuiyan's face turned even redder, and she scolded fiercely, unforgivable. How is it not the truth? Jun Mo Xia said seriously, Shui Yan. Actually, the 2 of us have already done that. I think we're just short of the bridal chamber. We've already seen each other what we should see, and touched each other what we should touch. We know each other very well. Is there a need to be more explicit? Mei Shuiyan was so angry that her fingers started to tremble. Jun Moxie, you're too shameless. Being shameless is better than not having a wife. Jun Moxie said happily, besides, it's not just the 2 of them who have swords. You and Qian Sun naturally have swords too. It's hard for you to use their swords. I've specially made one for you. Hearing this, Qian Sun's Serpent Queen's eyes lit up. She bit her lips and looked at Mei Shuiyan's expression. She didn't dare to say anything. We have one too. Mei Shuiyan heaved a sigh of relief. This guy finally changed the topic. She said fiercely, then why aren't you taking it out? Yes. Jun Moxie sang. He turned his body, twisted his buttocks, and stretched out his right hand. He shouted, change. Shua. 2 swords appeared in his hands. It was still so sudden. The 2 swords that appeared in his hands were much thinner and smaller than the previous 2 swords. The swords had a beautiful shape. It was obvious that they were swords for women. This time, Mei Shuiyan could be said to have mobilized all of her spiritual power and 100% of her spiritual sense to sense all of Jun Mo Xia's movements. She did not let down her guard at all, but she still could not find out how he had taken out these 2 swords. They had just appeared out of nowhere so suddenly. Mei Shuiyan was amazed. Only God knew how many more things that no one could understand about this mysterious young man. Jun Moxie took out one of the swords and handed it to Qian Sun's Serpent Queen. Qian Sun pulled out the sword and looked at it. She couldn't help but cry out in joy. She couldn't bear to part with it. Her joy was definitely not any less than that of the Bear King and the Tiger King. The sword that Qian Sun obtained was shining with a golden light, as if it was made of gold, and the craftsmanship was even more marvelous. It was actually a rare soft sword. The body of the sword twisted like a spirit snake, smooth and natural. As it trembled and swayed, it flickered with an unpredictable light. The tip of the sword was actually forked, like the tongue of a poisonous snake, emitting a cold light. This sword could slash, slice, stab, twist, lift, and swing. It had a few special characteristics that the other swords didn't have. It was directly made for the Snake King. Only the King of Snakes could bring out the strongest power of this soft sword. Among the 4 swords, this was the only one that June Moxie had specially made. It was tailor-made for the Serpent King. He had used up thousands of kilograms of gold and the power of gold to refine this golden soft sword that was made entirely out of soft gold. The Snake King was filled with joy. He looked at June Moxie affectionately, and couldn't wait to play with it. One moment, he wrapped it around his wrist, the next moment, he wrapped it around his waist. The soft sword seemed to have a mind of its own. It changed into different shapes in the hands of the Snake King, from the tip to the hilt. It was as if it was a living snake with a mind of its own. The more Qian Sun Serpent Queen looked at it, the more she liked it. The more she played with it, the more she couldn't bear to put it down. She squinted her eyes happily and placed the soft sword on her face. Jun Mo Xia laughed heartily. He grabbed the scabbard, and bent it. The scabbard also bent into a circular shape. One end of the scabbard was connected to the hilt of the sword. It was actually a belt. It turned out that June Moxie had put in a lot of effort on this scabbard. It could be said that he had a unique and exquisite mind. June Moxie smiled and said, "I think we should name this sword Snake King Sword. When you don't use it, you can wrap it around your waist. It will be easier to confuse people. Once you draw the sword, not only will it be convenient for you, it will also be able to catch people off guard. But, this is the best way to use this sword. Green Hunter, you should think carefully about how to draw this sword from your waist at the fastest speed. I personally think that this sword will be a great magic weapon for you to defeat your enemies." The Qian Sun Serpent Queen's face was flushed with excitement. She nodded her head and grabbed the scabbard to study it. Mei Shuiyan sighed in her heart. She felt that the favor she owed Jun Mo Xia was getting bigger and bigger. First, he had given her dozens of rare and precious elixirs. Now, he had obtained 4 divine swords. Looking at the Tiger King, Bear King, and Snake King, one was smiling foolishly while hugging his sword, one was wiping his sword as if he was serving his master, and the last one was experimenting non-stop with a look of excitement and delight. It was already impossible for him to not owe them a favor even if he wanted to. Even the 3 Holy Lands might not be able to take out a divine sword of this level. But June Moxie had given them 4 of them. Even with Mei Shuiyan's vast experience, she couldn't help but be shocked by this brat's generosity. Furthermore, he must have many weapons of this level in his hands. Tian Fa still had many Beast Kings, and with June Moxie's character, it was impossible for him to give away the Bear, Tiger, and Snake Kings and ignore the other Beast Kings. Although it was already a huge favor to accept these 4 swords, but it was still a good thing to have more. Thinking of this, Mei Shuiyan couldn't help but blush. What's wrong with me? Could it be that I'm addicted to taking advantage of others? It's really a sin. How could she not know that this brat June Moxie had bad intentions? This fellow was never someone who was willing to suffer losses. Perhaps if she owed him too much, this fellow would really ask for the debt to be repaid. With June Moxie's thick skin, Mei Shuiyan believed that he would do such a thing. Not only could he do it, he would do it confidently, without any change in expression. From the way this fellow was getting more and more impudent towards her, the moment he raised any conditions, his first target would probably be her. What should she do then? If he asked her to repay him with her body, would she be able to refuse? This fellow already had several beauties by his side. Could it be that she, the dignified Beast King of Tian Fa, would actually have to become his concubine? At that time, wouldn't it be like what he said, "Little thing, follow me, and I'll rub your butt every day"? Thinking of this, Mei Shuiyan's face was burning up. She glared at June Moxie hatefully, but what made her even more flustered was that she felt that she actually didn't have much of an aversion towards this matter. What's wrong with me? This is really ridiculous. This look from her caused June Moxie to feel a wave of panic. He hurriedly looked around and sized himself up. I only said a few words just now, but I didn't offend her. I gave away 4 divine weapons in one go. Why is this lady suddenly angry again? Could it be that this young master gave the wrong gift? Did I kiss up to the wrong person? But, looking at the situation, it doesn't seem like it. How would June Moxie know that Mei Shuiyan's thoughts were so jumpy? In just a short while, she was already thinking about the wedding night. After calming herself down, Mei Shuiyan raised her hand. June Moxie only felt a slight breeze, and the sword in his hand had already disappeared. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Mei Shuiyan was quietly sitting on the stone bench, carefully admiring the sword. Only one of the 4 swords is left, so this must be for me. The blush on Mei Shuiyan's face had not receded, but she pretended that she didn't care. She used this tone and said lightly. However, even super idiots like the Bear King and the Tiger King could tell that her tone wasn't normal. The 2 Beast Kings looked at each other and winked mysteriously for a while. Then, they went back to playing with their divine swords in tacit understanding. However, their ears were perked up in a daze. Of course, other than you, Shui Yan, who else is worthy of using such a divine sword? June Moxie smiled humbly, attentively flattering her. Humph. Nonsense. Mei Shuiyan snorted coldly, as if she was scolding him harshly. But Tiger King and Bear King immediately winked at each other. Hee, boss is happy. Why does this sound like the legendary flirting? In all fairness, Mei Shuiyan's sword was the most beautiful among the 4 swords. It was small and elegant, exquisite and sharp. The sword body was long and slender, and the hilt was just right for one to hold. It was smooth and natural, and the sharpness even carried the aura of a king. Even someone as arrogant as Mei Shuiyan couldn't help but admit that June Moxie had good foresight and unique craftsmanship. This sword was given to her, and it was a perfect match. Especially the pure white body of the sword, which was like white jade, and the white robe that he usually liked to wear. It was really a perfect combination. It was natural, and it had the feeling of being flawless. It must have been hard on you, Mei Shuiyan said lightly, but she used the tone of a superior person praising a junior. Not at all, not at all. For you, Shui Yan, I did not hesitate to go up a mountain of swords and plunge into a pot of boiling oil, through a hail of bullets, and face death with equanimity. I will die 100 times without regrets, 10,000 times without hesitation. Even 100 million deaths would be worth it. June Moxie shook his head and began to express his emotions. Ugh! Bear King, Tiger King, and Snake King made vomiting expressions as they ran out, far away from this shameless person. And, it could also be considered as creating space and time for this fellow to flirt with their boss. Mei Shuiyan snorted. She was obviously blushing, but she pretended that she didn't hear anything and only focused on admiring the sword in her hand. This fellow is like this. Give him a bit of color, and he can open a dye shop. Give him a bit of sunlight, and he will dare to shine on the earth. Might as well ignore him and let him do whatever he wants. The 3 Beast Kings were playing with the swords in the yard, but they were absent-minded. Their eyes kept glancing at the 2 people over there. Bear King and Tiger King had a look of gossip on their faces. Old 9, guess what's next? Bear Mountain winked excitedly. I guess it's going to be a kiss, Earthcracker said in a philosophical manner, looking like a philosopher in love. I don't think so. Bear Mountain shook his head disapprovingly as if he was very experienced. In my experience, I think it should be a tight hug, the kind that makes it hard to breathe. How is that possible? Don't you see brother-in-law licking his lips? This is obviously a prelude to a kiss. I think it's going to be this one. Earthcracker retorted sarcastically. He also licked his lips and swallowed his saliva. Chapter 537. Stupid. How can you be so stupid? How can you kiss if you don't hug? Don't pretend to understand when you don't. It's not a mistake to be ignorant. But, pretending to be knowledgeable when you don't have any knowledge is an unforgivable mistake. Bear Mountain scolded. Shut up, you two idiots. The two beast kings jumped in fright when they heard this. They turned their heads to look, and saw that the Snake King's complexion had turned ashen. An ominous glint flickered in her eyes as she glared at them. The Snake King's sword was swaying in her hand. In fact, it seemed as if it was a venomous snake that was about to devour someone. In that instant, both the Tiger King and the Bear King had a feeling that if they dared to say another word, the Snake King would definitely draw her sword and fight to the death with them. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. What's going on? The two Beast Kings were confused. How did Snake King's temper suddenly become so irritable? The two Beast Kings were getting more and more confused. It seems that Snake King's temper has gotten worse since they arrived in Tianxiang. It has developed to the point where he's like a barrel of gunpowder, and will explode at any moment. Could it be that he's with Big Brother? But, you don't have Big Brother's strength. Let alone two, you can't even deal with one, right? The two Beast Kings rolled their eyes, and silently cursed. He's actually scolding the wise and wise Bear King and Tiger King as idiots. He's really courageous. The three Beast Kings didn't expect that the two people inside wouldn't make any further movements. They just sat there quietly. Mei Xuan kept her head down, and fiddled with her sword. Jun Moxie had a smile on his face, and was quietly watching them. Neither of them made any movements. They were like two motionless statues, and were quietly letting the wind of time pass between them. The breeze blew, and Mei Xuan's skirt and hair fluttered in the wind. A gentle breeze blew past. Jun Moxie's sleeves fluttered in the wind. His eyes were ancient. The two of them just sat there, but it was like a beautiful painting, as if they could sit there until the end of time. Such tranquility, such carefreeness, and such warmth had left even the thick-skinned Big Bear and Earthcracker in a daze. Even the furious Snake King had been left dumbstruck by this scene. They had calmly watched this scene, and had felt their hearts brimming with warmth and emotion. Just at this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. Someone was hurriedly rushing over. A servant hurriedly pushed open the courtyard door and said, "Young master, the ceremony is about to begin. Old master and third master are asking you to hurry over. You cannot be absent at this crucial moment." The servant hadn't even finished speaking when he saw the three of them glaring at him with murderous intent. In an instant, he felt his hair stand on end. He couldn't help but be terrified to the extreme, and he almost fell to the ground. How could a small servant like him withstand the wrath of the three Beast Kings? They hadn't unleashed their full strength, and hadn't released their killing intent. But, it was still not something that he could withstand. "I know. I'll be right there." Jun Moxie's clear voice was heard. The servant felt his entire body relax as he heard Jun Moxie's voice. He couldn't help but gasp for breath. His entire body was drenched in sweat. "Shui Yan, you go ahead and make arrangements for their journey tomorrow. Don't forget the things that they need to pay special attention to. Well, I'll send someone else to deliver the things that they've bought to the Tianfa forest. So, let them travel lightly this time. I'll go ahead and greet them. I'll leave everything here to you." Jun Moxie looked at Mei Xuan, and said in a soft voice. Mei Xuan still didn't raise her head. She only calmly said, "Don't worry. Those two Beast Kings first gained 50 years of cultivation. Then, their speed increased by 3 times. Then, their cultivation speed increased by another 3 times. Now, they even have a godly weapon that can double their strength. If these two still can't return, then there's no need for them to return." Jun Moxie laughed and turned around to leave. He left behind Mei Xuan, minding her own business and reprimanding the two Beast Kings. He also completely ignored the resentful gazes that the two Beast Kings were shooting at his back. "Is there someone who wants me to go over?" Jun Moxie asked the servant as he floated forward. "Yes, young master's guess is correct. There is indeed someone at a table in the inner hall who wants to speak with young master. His Majesty the Emperor has also mentioned that he wants to see you. There is also young Master Li Yuran from the Grand Preceptor's residence. He said that if young master has the time, he would like to have a good chat with you. The servant said respectfully. Li Yuran wants to have a chat with me? Did he mention anything about it? June Moxie slightly frowned. Why does this guy want to talk to me now? What does he want to do? As for the first two groups of people that the servant had mentioned, June Moxie didn't pay any attention to them. It wasn't that he was a big shot. Rather, June Moxie clearly knew that there was no room for discussion between him and those two groups of people. An enemy was an enemy. There was no way to resolve the situation. Even if it wasn't for the time being, it would be for sure in the future. June Moxie had unlimited faith in his intuition. As for that Tianxiang's emperor, June Moxie didn't dare to see him. June Moxie was very afraid of seeing him. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his temper the moment he saw this old thing. He was afraid that he would chop off the emperor's head. If that were to happen, things would get really messy. Grandpa June and June Wui were seated at the head of the hall. Guan Qinghan was dressed in splendid attire as she stood in front of them. Guan Donglu was smiling happily as he stood behind his daughter. The guests had spontaneously arranged themselves into several rows. Shi Changshao and the others were at the forefront. Song Shang was already prepared as the master of ceremonies. Tian Xian was acting as the master of ceremonies. This was not a small matter. Everything was already prepared. All that was left was June Dashao's late arrival. Seeing that June Moxie had arrived, Song Shang breathed a sigh of relief. He took out a roll of silk from his bosom and unfolded it in front of him as if he was reading an imperial edict. Then, he read aloud. Today is an auspicious day. The June family has gathered here. The arrival of the four great masters and the Emperor of Tianxiang has brought light to our humble June family's humble dwelling. I'm indebted to the old Master June. I'm Song Shang, and I'm trying my best to assume the position of Master of Ceremonies today. I'm inexperienced and inexperienced. So, I'm the only one to blame for my incompetence. Please don't blame my June family. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone began to speak words of comfort. However, most of their gazes were focused on the Emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huaiyu. The Master of Ceremonies' speech had been personally edited and polished by June Moxie. Apart from the words four great masters, which were added by Song Shang, nothing else had changed. In particular, the words the arrival of the Emperor of Tianxiang had been addressed as Emperor instead of His Majesty. It seemed to indicate that the June family would no longer be a subordinate of the Tianxiang Empire. How could the people present not understand this? Therefore, everyone's complexion became very strange at this moment. His Majesty's complexion couldn't help but change slightly when he heard these words. Then, he returned to normal and smiled faintly. Even his eyes didn't waver in the slightest as he greeted everyone with a smile. It seemed as if he didn't understand the hidden meaning behind these words. He is indeed worthy of being called an ambitious and ruthless person. His expression doesn't change even after being slapped in the face. This calmness alone is worthy of admiration. June Moxie's eyes narrowed slightly. This guy is very scheming. He's far better than anyone else. He's actually able to keep his composure. It seems that it will be very difficult to get the truth out of his mouth. On the other side, Song Shang had already begun to carry out his duties. This is an auspicious day. A joyous occasion has arrived. The third master of the June family, June Wui, has officially adopted the housekeeper's daughter, Guan Qinghan, as his daughter. Henceforth, he will treat her as his own. The love between father and daughter can be seen in the world. He didn't say, the wife of the original June family, here. Instead, he said, the housekeeper's daughter. It could be seen from this sentence that Guan Qinghan's previous identity had completely vanished into thin air at this moment. She had become a mere memory. After a long and voluminous speech, Guan Qinghan finally came to the main point. Under Song Shang's instructions, Guan Qinghan gracefully stepped forward and knelt down. She kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. When she stood up, her cheeks were already streaming with tears. Jun Wui smiled as he helped her up. He then comforted her with warm words. He took out a sparkling luminous pearl as a gift from the adoptive father to his adopted daughter. Everyone applauded and congratulated him. Guan Qinghan will henceforth become the Jun family's daughter. She will comb her hair and assume a graceful posture. She will be allowed to choose her own talents. No one is allowed to interfere. The Jun family will regard this as an irreconcilable enemy if anyone violates this rule. We will not hesitate to use our weapons to fight to the death. However, everyone knows that the Jun family's adopted daughter, Guan Qinghan's previous identity was somewhat awkward. Everything that happened in the past has been wiped out with the wind. No one is allowed to mention it. The Jun family has made a special announcement. If anyone dares to offend her in the future, the Jun family will regard this person as an irreconcilable enemy. We vow to fight to the death. The words "to fight to the death" were spoken with an awe-inspiring murderous intent. The threat was overflowing from his words. This was Jun Moxie's usual strong and austere style. Song Shang brazenly recited Jun Moxie's iron-blooded declaration in the face of the Imperial family, the Xian Qi families of the continent, and even the 4 great masters. I will threaten the heroes of the world if I want to. Jun Mo Xia stood quietly in the crowd. A cold light flashed in his eyes like a bolt of lightning. His entire body was filled with arrogance. The entire place was filled with silence. The Jun family's declaration was extremely arrogant. However, everyone present, including the 4 great masters, did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. The Jun family now had the strength to say such words. They were not afraid of anyone. In this world where the bigger the fist was, the bigger the reason. The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. Tian Xian had several experts and countless Earth Xian experts. The Jun family's father and son were of a higher level than Shen Xian. They also had the Great Master, Solitary Eagle, and Jun Moxie's mysterious master. They also had a connection with Tian Fa Forest. Moreover, all the aristocratic families had the intention of befriending them. Even the divine sword of Fierce Gale, Feng Wanyun, was clearly on the side of the Jun family. Who on the continent would dare to look at such a strong force? The ceremony is over. Song Shang shouted in a deep voice. He clasped his hands together, put away the cloth, and bowed to the crowd. The hall suddenly burst into thunderous applause. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.